Hey everybody, this is Cameron from Obnoxious and Anonymous, and welcome to the Twin Peaks Thought of the Day. Today is Thursday, December 27th, 2018. I hope you guys out there have all had a happy holiday. My guest today is a new superstar in the Twin Peaks community. We did a video earlier this month, and how was I supposed to know he was going to be the new heartthrob in the community? I had so many people come forward and ask me, how do I get in touch with this person? And is he single? And all this stuff. I'm like, he told you how to access his YouTube channel. Go talk to him over there. So anyway, my guest today is Jeremiah. How's it going?
Great. How you doing?
Doing great. Now, for those of you who don't know, he runs the YouTube channel, Take the Ring. Also, it's a website. So I really want to thank you for coming on today's video.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is really great. Super excited.
I know a lot of people really enjoyed our last video. I felt that we had barely scratched the surface of what we could talk about. Wow. Partly because Mr. C was having just a he started freaking out probably because it was nap time. But the other thing is just I felt like when we were having that discussion, I felt like, wow, you're definitely somebody that I would like to have on this channel more often, to do these sort of deep dive kind of conversations. And I love your essays, and I felt like I wanted to bring you on as sooner than later. Of course, we had the holidays to contend with, but I'm so glad you're here. So
yeah, totally. Likewise, it's kind of the same thing. I have some friends that like Twin Peaks, and then my sister and some internet people I know, but not really not people that are just way into not people I guess on the level of where you can sit around and theorize about Judy and this and this and this. They're way more casual viewers. So I don't have a chance to geek out as much either, really. so
well, yeah. and it's been hard too, because there's not a lot of news. We don't even know if Twin Peaks is coming back anytime soon. So so there's a lot of people will say, well, there's not much to talk about anymore. And I guess on the surface, maybe there's not a lot to talk about, but we can go deeper than just the surface discussion, which is something I've been wanting to do for a while. Now I have to say, I haven't looked at the current number, but your YouTube channel shot up quite a bit after our last video. So I want to thank you all who watched that video, that went over and subscribed to Take the Ring, because I think you're gonna love where the channel's going.
Yeah, we did. We got a lot of subscribers since that video. I mean, it was like as soon as you posted it, I think I got 50 that day. So it was awesome. I was like, holy crap, this is great. So,
well, it was very well deserved. I mean, your channel is fantastic, and I want people to be aware of it.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Now, you sent me an early copy of the James holiday video you did, and I sent you a message back going, it's great, but you forgot the best one, which is Laura screaming, "I love you, James." So for those of you out there that may have wondering the same thing, Jeremiah, why did you not include that particular James phrase?
Well, the short answer is that Laura scene is the most traumatic, and for me, it's some people say it's overacted, whatever, but for me, it's really, really sad and kind of heartbreaking, and that really gets to the whole, just the sad, empty Laura thing. And well, so there's that. It was super sad. I actually had the clip pulled, and I was like, oh, of course, that's how I'm going to end it, right?
Right.
And then it just, I wanted this to be a little bit more lighthearted, which some people probably wouldn't have cared, but me personally, I was like, oh God, and then the other thing is that I really wanted to stick with the Donna theme. So the beginning is Cooper saying, "Hey Donna, is this guy's name start with J?" And then at the end, it's the whole teenage love, puppy love, kind of silly soap opera-y stuff. And then I thought it was, for me, it just landed funnier that it's Maddie at the end, the other one kind of in the love triangle going, after you hear the word James 80 times or whatever, then she's like, "Oh, hey, we got to tell James," right? So a lot of this started with my wife is not a big. She's not really a fan necessarily, but but when I'm watching the show, that was the one thing that like stuck with her. Like she'll walk through the room and just be, you know, like, Jesus, like, is that Lara Flynn Boyle saying James again? You know? So she'll walk, I'll be watching it or whatever, and she'll walk through the room and she'll be like, oh, James. And so as I was doing the Laura video, because I had to go through all the Maddie stuff and the Secret Diary stuff and whatever, and like as I was editing that, I was like, you know what, I was like, I'm gonna pull every time I hear her say. So I don't think it's every single one, but it's most of them. It's like, you know, 95% of throughout the original season 1 and 2. So I just started pulling all of them. I just thought it was hilarious.
I think if there was one thing they could have done in season 3 is when James performs his song.
Yeah.
The two girls singing the duet, when he glances over, it really should have been Maura Kelly and Cheryl Lee in the brunette wig. There should have been a Donna Maddie callback in that moment. Even if it was just for a second or two, it would have made the fans go ballistic.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was the James thing, it's like it's so funny. It kind of sums up my whole, I don't know if you feel the same or not, but like, you know, I love the show. It's probably my favorite show of all time just because of all the ins and outs and how deep you can go with things or whatever. But like, the context of it, like it was when it started kind of a nighttime drama, and there's definitely the soap opera elements and like the puppy love elements. So it's like I have a sense of humor about the whole thing. And of course, when I was 15, that was the crap that I hated. Like I would always fast forward through the, you know, the Donna and James stuff. I want to get to the Bob and the Cooper stuff, and you know. But then as I get older, I've kind of like mellowed out, and I think it's kind of cute. But then in season 3, Lynch totally like the first episode is like, hey, James was always cool. Like, fuck you guys for making fun of James for 30 years. Like, he was always cool, and he's going to sing the song and all this stuff. So, I don't know. I just...
Well, I mean, when you look at James Hurley in the season 1 and 2, Lynch and Mark Frost are never making fun of that character.
Right, exactly.
He's... In a way, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I think that Lynch approaches his character very similar to like Sailor Ripley. I mean, it's that cool guy, doesn't have to say much. He's mysterious, but he is sort of the opposite of Bobby Briggs in certain ways. And you know, it's just you never felt like that. You know, I remember reading reviews in Blue Velvet where they'd say, "Oh, Lynch is camping it up with all those stories about Robins and Laura Dern talking to Jeffrey about the Robins will come," and it's like, no, Lynch believes that. Like it's not Lynch just being silly. Like he truly believes in this power of love.
Yes.
So all that stuff about you know, with Donna and James and all that, it's like he believes in that as much as he does about the Red Room.
Right. You're right. And that's obvious. It's a overlooked thing of David Lynch is his sentimentality. Right. So you've got the straight story, and you know, Ed and Norma in season 3, and just like the Robins and Blue Velvet, and the cheese, like there's so much evil in the world, and it's so like hammy and cheesy, but it's like very honest, you know, like that is totally David Lynch. Like, and
the Sailor and Lula ending of Wild at Heart, I mean, that's not in the book.
Right.
I mean, the ending of the book is where Sailor leaves Lula.
Oh, actually, I never read the book. I just watched Wild at Heart recently. So
we know when he says goodbye to Lula and Pace, and he leaves, and she says, "Sailor, come back, Sailor, come back." That's the book's ending.
Oh, wow.
And Lynch was like, I want these two together. And I remember at the time, I wish I could find this clip online, but I just, you know, you would think with all the Lynch fanatics out there, someone would have uploaded it, but I can't find it. If anybody can find it, check it out. It's or show it to me. It's a Siskel and Ebert thing where they did an hour-long special about filmmakers in Hollywood. And they talk about David Lynch. And they actually scored an interview with David Lynch, which is hilarious considering at the time Ebert really didn't have the greatest affection for him. He came around on him eventually, but at that time he really didn't have an affection for him. So, but what's great is Lynch goes on there and he has his shirt buttoned up, all the way to the top, no tie. And that was very inspirational to me because I was in 8th grade and they were like trying to tell me at my 8th grade graduation I was gonna have to wear a tie. And I'm like, well, this guy doesn't wear a tie and he looks cool. So I got away with it from Lynch's interview. But anyway, he goes on the record saying, and I'm paraphrasing here because Lynch doesn't talk this way, but he's like saying, look, there's an ending. There's a happy ending to Wild at Heart, but I did not do it for commercial reasons. I did it because I want Sailor and Lula together. Right. So, but the fact that he had to come out and and say like he was going to be looked down upon in Hollywood as if creating a commercial ending to try to have his film be more profitable. And he had to come out and make a stance against it and say, no, I'm doing it because I want them to be together. In fact, years later, Barry Gifford says in an interview that Lynch called him up and says, does Sailor and Lula ever get back together? And he says, yes, of course they do. And he goes, great. And so that's how he justified it. But I think but what I find so interesting is last time we discussed the idea of even though the ending of season 3 is dark, it also there is a line of hope there if you look into it in terms of the explosion of electricity and the fact that the Lynch Frost logo at the end doesn't have any sound anymore. It's the idea that Carrie Page or Laura Palmer is going to eventually eradicate this Jowday Judy thing and the electricity. One day, maybe not at that moment, but one day it's going to happen. And that goes back to something I've been saying for a long time, is that with the exception of Lost Highway, his trilogy of his LA trilogy of terror, basically Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, and Inland Empire, everything else he's ever done, happy ending. Right.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Blue Velvet, completely happy ending. Dorothy gets her kid back. Jeffrey's father recovers from his stroke. Jeffrey and Sandy are together. The bird gets the worm. Wild at Heart, Sailor and Lula are a couple. They're going to be with their child. The Elephant Man, yeah, it's sad, it's bittersweet, but he finally finds peace and rejoins his mother. Dune, Paul Atreides restores. It just goes on and on and on. Right? Straight Story gets back together with his brother. So Lynch is a true romantic.
Yeah.
And everybody keeps saying, oh, Lynch is just this dark artist. It's like, yeah, that's in there, but don't underestimate the power of the light in his work too. And I think that's something that I think a lot of people do not explore. They explore the weird parts of him, the avant-garde parts of him, but I don't see a lot of people praising the light in his work.
Yeah. And I think I felt the same, especially in junior high school, I started to get into cool movies and stuff. I think it's just kind of a natural, like you said, the light side though is usually just very sentimental, and I would, even say sappy or cheesy at times, maybe a little over the top. And I think that the terror stuff, the dark stuff is so the use of sound and things I just think that it's all there. I think that just people get hit with the weirdness and the darkness is what sticks with them. But I'm with you 100%, multiple viewings or even just, at face value, it's actually pretty amazing. It's actually why I'm still such a fan of his over the years, because I find just as much hope and optimism as I do getting off on the dark, weird stuff too, So go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's, I know back in the day when he in my heart when I felt like he had reached the zenith of his powers, which was 86 to 92. I think that's, I know a lot of people like his later work, and I like it too a lot. But to me, I felt like he's firing on all cylinders between 86 and 92, because he's got complete command of this balance of the light and dark, the good and evil, the real and surreal, you know, then his stories became more surreal, even more avant-garde, right? Whereas between 86 and 92, he literally found that road, that balance in there between, like, so much in Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart is real.
Yeah.
But so much of it is surreal. Twin Peaks straddled that line.
Yeah.
Now I feel like we all live inside a dream. Now everything's surreal. Everything's, you know, it has more of a hint of reality to it than reality to it.
Yeah.
So I think his work has evolved almost more towards back to where it was at the grandmother days than I think he's kind of gone full circle.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's why I completely lost my shit in part 8, because to me it was bringing it all back to like Eraserhead. Like, to me, part 8 was Twin Peaks meets Eraserhead and everything in between. And I mean, actually, I got a lot of like 2001 vibes than just like over massive visual. I don't know.
Well, I felt like you said 2001
flying through the explosion and the black and white stuff and like the cut film stuff, and then
but it also felt like Terrence Malick's Tree of Life and all, just, you know, all of it thrown together.
Yeah.
And we all know that Kubrick was a huge fan of Lynch's, and I mean, well, during the making of The Shining, he would have regular screenings of Eraserhead for everybody, and he would introduce it as the greatest film ever made.
No.
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's crazy.
So, and then of course Terrence Malick and Lynch are good friends. Terrence Malick worked with Sissy Spacek, of course, of Badlands, and Jack Fisk, and of course Jack Fisk is David Lynch's best friend from back in the day, and Jack Fisk and Sissy Spacek helped make Eraserhead, and you know, they're all intertwined together.
Interesting. Yeah. I didn't know that. Speaking of Kubrick, not to throw it off, but did you see Film Worker yet?
Yes.
Yeah. I just watched that last week. That was
if there's something about Kubrick that comes out, I devour it, because like he of course seems like somebody who would be a pain in the ass, but at the same time though, I can see why people would be like, yeah, he's a pain in the ass, but I see like what he's trying to do with that, and I don't know, his the way he approaches work is very inspirational to me.
Yeah, I agree. It's a guy that was a total professional photographer, and like, you know, made his he was just he was like Lynch or David Bowie or a lot of artists that I admire, that they pay their dues, and then at a certain point they're lucky and fortunate enough to be able to spend the rest of, or the majority of their career, doing what they want to do. And that kind of work is just so like pure and honest and interesting. And like, I haven't seen every single Kubrick movie, but like, man, like 2001, Clockwork Orange, Shining, Strange Love, Barry Lyndon, Full Metal Jacket. Like, I watch all those movies like once a year. Like,
and Eyes Wide Shut feels like a lost.
I like Eyes Wide Shut too.
It feels like a lost David Lynch movie.
It's true. That is true. It's definitely. Actually, I haven't seen Eyes Wide Shut in a while, but
well, you should, because it's a Christmas movie.
Right. So
what's so funny is, once you notice it, every single scene has a tree or Christmas lights in it.
Yes.
Every scene. It's amazing. But yeah, you know, Kubrick is. I think he's one of the greatest filmmakers. I mean, that's no new revelation there.
Yeah, of course. It's kind of like, well, you know, it's like, you know, yeah.
But what I loved is his crew was so talented and so knowledgeable about everything having to do with film, that he could shoot a movie like Full Metal Jacket or Eyes Wide Shut with 6 people, including him. Yeah. And he would show up and say, count the plates. If we have more than 10 plates, we're overpaying and someone needs to go home. So he would keep the crew down to 6 people.
Yeah.
And that is why they were able to shoot Eyes Wide Shut for nearly 2 years. Because
without spending $1 trillion.
Well, and they only went 10% over the budget because he keeps his costs low.
Yeah.
And that's why Warner Brothers was like, do whatever you want to do, take as much time as you want, because he's giving them the most bang for the buck.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So they always talk about he's a chess player and that type of thing. You can see it that he was very strategic. And when you're like that, you can make a lot of things happen in your corner. Yeah. It's like Coppola would say in that documentary Hearts of Darkness about Apocalypse Now. He would say, when you have $100, if you play it carefully, you can make it feel like $1,000.
Yeah.
It's the people who just just explode and don't care about money. That's the movies that drive up the costs. But if you have a talented person who knows what they're doing, they can, I mean, I don't know what the budget was for season 3. I don't think any of us do.
Yeah.
And I'm probably wrong, but it does seem like at a certain point they ran out of money, because David Lynch, Miguel Ferrer as Albert and Christabel as Tammy, they're in that hotel room for a long time. All of a sudden, this grandiose big thing just gets shrunk down to like a hotel, like little room.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, do you get a similar feeling that like they went big in some areas and then said, okay, if we're gonna go big here, we got to go small here?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I'd call it disappointment, but the FBI stuff always kind of rubbed me a little bit weird, but it kind of ties into the original one. Like they're there, and Cole and Albert kind of like know what's going on, but like they don't really impact the story. They just kind of like sit off to the side and like give the audience like cryptic shit to think about. And it's all in the hotel room, or it's in the conference room with all the radios and stuff, the final, right before they go to Twin Peaks. So like the last two, 16 and 17, are all in that room. And then like 13, 14, 15, like then there's a huge chunk, with the French lady in the hotel room and all that stuff. It's like everything's in that stupid hotel room.
Right.
I agree. Like, it seemed like that was going to go somewhere bigger. And then they're just like, okay, well, we're just going to like sit here for the rest of the series. That was like my one, after part 8, the only thing, I basically think 1 through 7 are like pretty much flawless, like pacing and tone, and things are building. And then part 8, like it's just like so over the top, and it's this masterpiece and all that stuff. And like coming down from that. So like 9, 10, 11, like there's kind of in the middle there. It feels like the show's trying to like find itself again. Do you think if you took out episode 8, let's say episode 8 didn't exist.
Yeah. Do you think episode 8 like ruined the rhythm of it? I mean, because to me, I felt like it seemed like a pause, like a huge like flashback episode, right? But if you took episode 8 out and you went just 7 to 9, do you think that would continue the rise, or do you think that it would have still felt that way anyway?
It's hard to say, because like I said in our last video, like some guy wrote an article. He's like, hey, I sat down and I watched the whole season 3 in one day, and my wife was out of town for a conference and I had nothing to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this out, see if I can do it. So I like woke up at like 6 a.m. and I watched the whole thing all the way through till like 2 a.m. like the next morning. And
now I've thrown it on a timeline before. It is not 18 hours. It's like 15 hours and like 45 minutes.
Which makes sense, because I stopped in like 8 and then did some stuff. But like it feels fine. Like it's kind of like the more I watch it, the more the pacing and stuff, like there is kind of a rhythm there, and the Dougie stuff doesn't drag. Like I understand that first watching was brutal because you want Cooper to come back, and it's just like a knife in your gut every time Dougie shows up, because no matter how cool you think you are or how into film and blah, 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 like deep down inside, everybody wanted, including me, everybody wanted Cooper to come back. So the Dougie stuff is excruciating, But if you watch it again, and like I've seen it probably 3 or 4 times now at least, and I don't mind it so much. I actually think Dougie's super funny, and I kind of, if you know where it's going, it's not so brutal, and the pacing.
I think what it was the breaks, and then you had to wait a week, and then there was still nothing, and then you had to wait a week. I think that's what did it. Because if you do watch it, even in a couple episode chunks, it does like flow. I never really had a problem with it. Obviously, I wanted Cooper back, but then there was this part of me, this kind of evil part of me. I was thinking, well, maybe Cooper's just not coming back.
I agree. I had that too. I had to have conversations with people. I was like, look, guys, like, there's a good chance that Cooper ain't even going to show up at all. And if he does, it might just be the last episode. And again, like, we're just going to have to deal with it. And I struggled the whole time with it. But that's another reason why it was so engaging. To me, like, I don't like things that are easy. Like, I like the challenge. And so there was a part of me that wanted Cooper back. And there was a part of me like, God damn, I can't believe they're doing this. Like, they brought Twin Peaks back and they're not giving us Dale Cooper. Like, these guys are either the biggest balls on earth, or they're just insane, or they're trying to make a point. And again, that feeds in like nostalgia, and you can't go home again and all that stuff. So I don't know, like, I was just hit with a wave of emotion, and every episode was just
I agree with you. I think we said last time that there was a bit of trolling on their part.
For sure.
I mean, because even Kyle came out and said that the first script he read, had elements of Cooper coming back earlier and earlier. I think we see one of those when he takes the gun away from Ike.
I thought that was it. I thought the next episode was going to be,
Cooper back.
Yeah, basically.
You know what? As it went on, I kept thinking Cooper's not coming back, if at all. Because I thought Lynch and Frost they're just not interested in having like big confrontations in things. And so I thought they're probably going to just wait until the very end to bring him out. And even when they did bring him out, he wasn't really Cooper. He kind of came out and then he went down a dark hallway and then he's another character and all that kind of, or he became something else or whatever. I like to think Richard and it, like we talked about last time, was the actual merging of the light and dark Cooper together.
Yeah.
That's just the way I see it right now. Of course, if there was a season 4, I may have to reinterpret that. But let me throw this out to you. Do you think Dougie, the concept of Dougie, the length of the Dougie subplot also performed this other function? And that is, I'm sure you've seen retrospective documentaries or you've read things about Fire Walk with Me, and that Kyle MacLachlan did not want to be a part of Fire Walk with Me. He didn't want to be typecast, so he didn't do it, and then he decided to do it at the last second, so they reworked his stuff back in there. But in that awful documentary you see on the Blu-ray, where it's that one about Twin Peaks and Fire Walk with Me, where it's all cut to shit, and it's like they don't even let the actors even have a complete sentence without cutting to a million things.
Yeah.
He's on there and he says, you know what, Fire Walk with Me, I really didn't want to be part of it because I read the script and I said, why are we going back here? This is too dark. This is too depressing, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that the Dougie aspect was something? Now, obviously, Mr. C has its own aspects to it and that are great. Definitely challenging to play. But do you think the Dougie character was the thing that Lynch and Frost went to Kyle with and say, look, this isn't gonna just be wallowing in agony and Laura Palmer and death and horror. We're gonna have a lot of comedy for you to play. And I think that lightness is probably the besides him wanting to be Cooper again, I think that lightness was one of the determining factors for getting Kyle back on board. That he was not going to he wasn't going to have to walk in and be like, can I have a cup of coffee and a piece of pie? He got to do that, but in a different way.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, I have to go back and repeat everything I did again and be judged by what I'm doing now versus then. No, they figured out other ways. As I once said to Sabrina Sutherland, you guys figured out a way to give us the goods in a way we didn't expect that we were going to get the goods.
Yeah.
Right. Like that whole scene in the restaurant with the Mitchum brothers and Cooper and on the pie. We got Cooper eating pie right there. It's just not the way we expected to see it.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So there's that. But I do think that the Dougie subplot, which drives people nuts, I think that was one of that and the Mr. C character was the thing that brought Kyle back. Because Mr. C is gonna, be a really challenging character to play. But with the exception of a few moments here and there, you're not going to have to do anything too dark, so he got to be a dark character without having to. It's not like Mr. C goes in and starts like assaulting a bunch of people. His assault on Daria goes a long way. It goes the length of the series. It's not like we get tons of those moments with him.
It's just that one. Yeah.
But I mean, do you think that? I mean, I know Kyle obviously wanted to do Cooper again because he was thinking back, it'd be great to do it again. But I think the Dougie aspect was one of the things that brought him out more.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what you said just now. Like, I think Kyle MacLachlan would have come back in no matter what Lynch and Frost wanted to do. But I think it was a challenge, a personal challenge. It served many functions, and it was a personal challenge for Lynch and Frost. So I read somewhere, it was maybe Frost, or like when they're trying to write the script, like they're like writing the Dougie stuff, and they're like, oh, we were cracking up the whole time. Like, I think one, they genuinely thought and think and still think that like that shit's funny. Number two, you're when you said delivering the goods, like in my view, that's like literal, like it's literally the good side of Cooper in this shell. And there's this empty, dead Las Vegas and this like broken family with this asshole that doesn't care about his wife and kid, and you've got the gangsters in the casino and like all this like evil stuff. Well, then like then Dougie Jones, the idiot Cooper Tulpa thing, shows up and like kind of heals the family. The wife loves him again. So it's like literally the goodness. But then like I think they wanted some humor, and then like you said, like it's this whole thing is like a messed up version of the original show. So we do get Cooper eating coffee, like, or eating pie and drinking coffee, like you said. But, it's this like invalid, he spits the coffee out because it's too hot, and then eating the pie and the cake and the like, I don't know, like I said, the first time I watched it, I was like a lot of people, just really not getting it or not getting into Dougie too much, or there was the part of me that wanted Cooper back or whatever. But like, yeah, looking back, like I think it was a challenge. If we're not going to bring Cooper back, then what are we going to do? If he's really split in two, then how are we going to do that? And how are we going to find balance of Mr. C? And yeah, I mean, it's not that, like I said, I think Kyle would have done it no matter what, but I think that was definitely like a selling point. I think he was more excited to come back to have that kind of a challenge. It's like, so I'm playing a serial murderer and rapist, and I'm playing this kind of like invalid, goofball, loving.
It's almost like,
right,
let me play Frank Booth over here, and then I get to play Forrest Gump over here.
Exactly, it's exactly what it is. Yeah, exactly. Frank Booth and Forrest Gump. That's
now that being said.
Yeah.
Like, this is a question. I was driving around. This is what happens, right? I'm driving around and I start thinking about Twin Peaks. I'm going to bring this up to Jeremiah and see what he says about this. We get the impression that Mr. C is like this world-known, gangster or rich guy, right? He's got these, supposedly we see pictures of this mansion he's had and all this type of thing. But the Mr. C we encounter in season 3 doesn't seem like he has those kind of connections. Yeah, he has that office building, 2 guys, and then he's got Hutch and Chantel over here, and then he's got Ray and Dario over here, and he's wearing these like dirty clothes. He's very much like Bob with the hair and the dirty coats, and just sitting in Lynch's favorite place, diners and that type of thing. This is not where rich people typically, world-renowned gangsters are hiding out. So, do you think that with with him getting ready to maybe be sucked back into the lodge and him trying to make sure that he's able to trick them and get this Tulpa in there and him stays, I'm almost feeling like he's had to go underground for a little while and kind of just hang out with the foot soldiers of his crew rather than his main people around him. Doesn't it seem like he's slumming it?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, so part of me thinks that, like, he's just evil personified and doesn't care what he looks like, and he's going to get what he wants, and he's just a scumbag. So he wears the snakeskin shirt and the dirty leather jacket and the dirty, like. So part of me thinks he's kind of, but yeah, you see a photo of his Brazilian mansion or whatever, but like. I basically agree with you. I think that he has spent the last 25 years accumulating wealth and power and connections and using his FBI expert. Like, he's an evil genius, right? He's Dale Cooper. It's like, what would Dale Cooper do if his only mission in life was to inflict harm and accumulate wealth, right? And like, but I agree, like that last, all that stuff, like Ray and Daria, all that stuff you just said, and rewiring the car. So I think that the car and speeding, like he knows at 2:53 he's going to try to get pulled back in, and that's when he's got the Dougie thing set up, and that's when he's going to be in the car. And he asked that guy, I forget his name, before he kills him, like, did you rewire the car? So he's got like kind of like a Back to the Future DeLorean type situation, like he's rocketing down the highway with an electric shield around him to try to keep him from being sucked back. But I agree. I think that everything we see of him, especially in the return, especially in that week or couple of days or whatever, like he's totally bracing to be pulled back in. And yeah, he's not going to be hanging out in his Manhattan penthouse just chilling. Like he's got his thugs out there ready to kill Dougie. He's got Ray and Daria. He's got all these contingency plans. Like, I think he's totally on the move. Yeah, slumming it. Like ready for whatever happened. I mean, he's cool and collected, and he acts like he's like the baddest dude. But he's concerned. Like, I'm not going to get sucked back in there or whatever. I'm not. They want me to go back to the Black Lodge, but that shit's not happening or whatever he says. Like.
But I did mention Frank Booth earlier, and now I'm thinking, yeah, he is more Frank Booth than Bob, even though Bob's inside of him, because
yeah, absolutely,
because Frank Booth is in Blue Velvet, obviously the personification of pure evil, just like Bobby Peru is in Wild at Heart. But if you really think about it, Frank Booth is just a low-life local scumbag, drug dealer, kidnapper, that type of thing. When you really break down Mr. C, at least the version we see in this show, in season 3, is he really all that bad? I mean, the only person that we know that he kills for sure, besides the guy with the mouth thing, is he's getting rid of his accomplices. I mean, Daria, backstabbed him with Ray. So I mean, that's what happens in film noir, right? I mean, you end up killing the person who stabs you in the back. But it's not like he's going out just massacring tons of people. He just seems kind of lost, and you feel almost kind of sad for him too, in a way. And then he just goes out by Lucy just shooting him in the back, and it's just like, I don't know. So it got me thinking, something to ask you is, who is the true villain of season 3? Is it the doppelganger? Is it Mr. C? Is it this Judy Jaude thing? Is it Richard Horne? Is it just the fact that the bad Cooper's out in the world, and so the world itself is evil? That's the way it seems like to me.
Yeah, me too.
But there's a tremendous amount of time spent with Richard Horne. I mean, Richard Horne to me scares me more than Mr. C ever did in the entire series.
I agree. I don't know. I think I tweeted something out yesterday, but I've been thinking about this a lot the last few weeks. Like,
hang on a second. Hold that thought. Sean says Mr. C killed the wife with a gun. True. But again, another person that he was using to, you know, in his schemes, he's covering his tracks. He's not going out and just wiping out innocent people. I mean, yes, he did the thing with Diane. I
was going to say he did rape Diane and Audrey.
But let me put a stipulation.
That's off screen, I guess.
It's off screen and years ago. Now, it's not like we got a scene of Kyle MacLachlan doing that to Sherilyn Fenn, right? Now, if we got that, I would not even bring this up. Right. But I'm saying the bad things the real bad stuff that Mr. C did were all off screen and years ago.
This is true. Yeah.
So, Lisa says, "Am I the only one who hears Mr. C and now thinks of my kid before the Twin Peaks character?" Well, thank you very much. I assure you, Mr. C has never killed somebody who backstabbed him.
Yeah, that's funny. No, but I tend to agree with you. I think the world, quote unquote, the world is the villain. Like, there's no tangible villain. Richard Horne is the villain. Is the main.
It almost seems like. I mean, by default, it should be Mr. C, right?
Well, and it kind of is based on, again, like, he is a rapist and a murderer and all that stuff. But yeah, like, as the function of the story, he's kind of more like the protagonist in a way. So that's the whole idea, like, the whole world is evil, and like, this is an evil story, and like, this is the guy that's, I mean, it's certainly not Gordon Cole, it's certainly not Dougie Jones. Like, Mr. C is the one that's, if there is a plot, I guess, like, he's the one moving the story along, and you know what I mean? Because at least he's got a clear goal. Like, this is what I'm after, Jaudet, and they're going to keep me from going back in the lodge, and I'm going to get rid of this Dougie Jones guy. Like, he's got motivation and whatever. But you're right. Like, Richard Horne and Eamon Farron, like, God damn, that was an amazing performance. And it's funny, like, now that it's been a year, when I randomly think about The Return or something randomly pops in my mind, Richard Horne is involved, like, you know, assaulting Sylvia and getting, you know, annihilated in that portal thing and running over the little kid, like, all that shit. Like, he's always in my mind about The Return. And
well, you know, Jennifer Lynch told me that she was reading Helter Skelter once as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And David came to her and said, you know, there's darkness in this world, and then there's true evil. And I'm almost thinking that Mr. C is the darkness and Richard Horne is the true evil. I mean, it's the world, all that stuff. But the way Richard Horne is portrayed, he's just, you know, he's an idiot teenager brat kid that we all applauded when he got killed. But the way he stares down that poor woman in her mobile home before he runs in there and attacks her, right?
Oh yeah, just chilling.
There is something truly inherently evil in that character. There's no redeeming aspect of that character at all. I mean, the first time we meet him, he's assaulting a woman in the roadhouse.
In the roadhouse, yeah.
That was our introduction to him. And in fact, something I heard a long time ago was, you know, the one woman who enjoys pie and coffee in the show that has any happiness gets nearly beaten to death by Richard Horne.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, like that. It's a great acting performance, I think. But I almost think, and this is actually a compliment, I think it's almost too good. Because that's the kind of thing where it's like people see you in that role now, and now he's gonna have to do something so different, because now whenever I think about that actor, I think of Richard Horne. And that means I don't like him. You know, and so that actor, he was in Jennifer Lynch's film Chained, and that's where he came from.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that.
But I hope Eamon, like, turns it around and does like a 180 and does something like, I don't know, some romantic comedy or something, because he's got to rinse that character, because otherwise you become the Malcolm McDowell Clockwork Orange thing.
Right.
Where you become so typecast that people don't want to see you if you're not Alex or Caligula. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think he's a good actor and he should be able to get a lot of chances. But that Richard Horne character is, I mean, it's not like, oh, he has a little moments here and there of evil and darkness. I mean, Lynch and Frost just doubled down on his character. And I mean, if you think about it, there's no point to him running over that kid in that show. I mean, you could take that whole scene out and the show just continues.
Mm-hmm.
That scene is designed to be in there, obviously, to have this moment with Harry Stan and the mother and all that. But it's also there. I mean, like, that's one thing they teach you in film school, right? Is you don't just randomly kill kids in your movies or animals.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they just plowed him down.
Oh man, it's so bad.
And so and the way he's like screaming when he does it too, and it's just like, whoa! It's like, oh my Lord, it's really, I don't know. It was like he was the one character that I loved to hate, but when he was gone, I was thrilled that he was out of the story.
Yeah.
You know, I do agree with some people where they say, you know, I wish his character had been a little more explored and not just been the evil incarnate. I mean, from what I understand, I could be wrong, but from what I understand, it wasn't supposed to be the grandmother. It was supposed to be Audrey that he was assaulting, and that Sherilyn Fenn didn't want to do it, and so they changed her story a little bit. But
okay, so that's what I was gonna, just not to interrupt, but like that. So that's one thing I meant to ask you. Like, do we know? I hadn't read or come across what I know that Sherilyn Fenn didn't like her part, and they changed it.
Mm-hmm.
And you think it stemmed from that?
That's what I heard.
Okay, interesting. I mean, I guess that would make sense. I mean,
okay, the only reason why that I'm okay with the change is I don't think Audrey Horne would let that happen to her. I think that she would have kicked his ass
or shot him or something. Like, yeah.
You know, I mean, and I think that would have. I mean, people were upset with the way Audrey was just introduced with just a hard cut, and all of a sudden, boom, there she is, right? Which again, I think, again, that's another bit of humor and trolling on their part too, right? It's like, let's give Audrey Horne, but we're going to just do a hard cut. You're going to be shocked. Oh my God, there she is. No reveal, no up the shoes, nothing. You know what I mean? Just boom, here she is. And she's like married to some, like, we don't know what he is. He's like half midget or whatever. You know what I mean? Half little person or whatever. And let's give him a 12-minute scene where all it is you know, cutting back and forth, and she's just going to be nasty and swearing, and we're not going to know any details of what they're talking about, and we're sitting there for 12 minutes, and there's your introduction. You know, the greatest meme I ever saw go around during season 3 was a meme that had David Lynch's face on it and said, "Every time someone complains about the return, I cut out another Audrey Horne scene." And because people kept saying, "Where's Audrey? Where's Audrey?" And I kept thinking, if you go back and watch my shows, I kept saying, who cares? I mean, when they show up, they'll show up, you know?
Yeah, that was my attitude as well. I was like, some people, and I knew some people weren't weren't gonna make it. Weren't gonna make it in the cut. I actually like the end where you get to revisit the pilot, so you get to see Joan Shannon, Piper Laurie, and Jack Nance again. That was great. And the Fire Walk With Me stuff, seeing Leo and Jacques, like, it's not like they're the greatest characters on earth, but they're kind of crucial to the, I don't know. Again, you're getting nostalgia. You're getting to see these characters again, some of them, but it's, you know, it's just for a couple seconds or whatever. But the Audrey stuff's actually grown on me quite a bit. I actually, like, at first I was like, what? Like you said, like, yeah, there's 15 minutes of this couple arguing. We don't know what they're arguing about. We don't know who they're referencing. We don't know any of the context.
But were you okay with the story after season 3 was over, or did the Final Dossier help put it into context? Because I mean, I was okay with it as it went on, but then when I read Mark Frost's The Final Dossier, I was like, oh, I can see how this kind of ties into it, because they do kind of make mention of the fact that she married her accountant, that type of thing. You know, So it kind of made sense a little bit more, context.
Yes. Yeah. I was fine with it without the Final Dossier. Like I liked Final Dossier a lot. Well, that's a different. I don't want to go down that.
That's a different topic.
Yeah, that's a different thing. But no, I agree. Like basically, what I read in the Final Dossier is kind of like what I had in my mind anyway, with the one exception. And this still could be true because the show is its own thing, and the book is its own thing. And the Final Dossier contradicts even season 3.
Sure.
In a lot of ways, a lot of small things, but that's what I meant. Like there's a different story, but
they could argue that the new timeline is what's shifting everything around.
Right. Just how, right. And the way that the secret history, even though some of that stuff's explained, there's still so that plays in people's memory, perception of events, and timelines too, because my whole thing especially after episode 8, when season 3 got over, and the Final Dossier wasn't out yet, and all we had was the secret history, that in my mind was how I was reconciling the inconsistencies in the different stories, was that the fireman and Judy have been playing this cat and mouse game with either Cooper or Jeffries or Milford's or just the Blue Rose or whatever, like. So, and Carl Rod moving closer to Twin Peaks. Even before the Final, I always felt that was if this really is a good versus evil thing, like a chessboard thing, that was the fireman moving Carl Rod, the force of good, closer to Twin Peaks. Anyway, whatever. So,
pause right there.
Yeah.
Let me break it down in the writer's room for you.
Yeah.
Well, if we're doing Twin Peaks again, we got to bring Harry Dean back. Mark Frost says, well, Lynch, that he was down there at Deer Meadow, which is
yeah.
Well, this will be the new Fat Trout Trailer Park. I think that's the extent it went.
Yes. Yeah. No. Of course. I just, but Frost has to, like you said, with Fire Walk with Me, he has to contextualize everything in his mind. Oh, sorry. So we were talking about Audrey. Like, I thought one possibility before the Final Dossier was that she was still in the original coma.
Sure.
That she was in the coma from 25 years ago, and that moment at the Roadhouse when she wakes up was her waking up from her coma. So like she was pregnant and had Richard Horne during her coma, or was that shit even real to begin with? I don't know. But yeah, the Final Dossier it's like, oh, okay, like this is her. Maybe not necessarily in the coma from the explosion, but she's definitely in an institutionalized or going through some sort of. She's trying to reconcile her life choices.
Well, she can't be institutionalized because no institution would have glass mirrors in her room.
Oh well, okay, yeah,
right. But the way I looked at it is because. I think in the same episode, we have the Tulpa Diane saying that Mr. C took her to a place, right? And so I assumed that when Audrey woke up, that she realized that she was in this other place, that he had, after he had done what he did with her and got Richard Horne, he stuck her somewhere.
Yeah, gotcha.
And that was like her, where am I? What the hell's going on?
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
I know a lot of people will be like, well, I expected this. I honestly, because David Lynch is, as much as he goes into dark territory, is also an optimist. I kind of expected at the end of episode 16, I felt it was a cliffhanger, and I felt we were going to get something more with it in the last 2 episodes. I didn't think he was going to leave Audrey like that at the end.
Yeah, I didn't either. I'm with you on that too. In fact, episode 16 felt more like the finale of. It was kind of like Cooper looking in the mirror at the end of season 2, like the Bob. That was. So it didn't make sense at the time, but like watching it again and knowing that you're not going to get any more of Audrey, it feels kind of right in a way to me. I mean, I didn't really know, like,
but having her having her end like that, and then all the endings and you know, the cliffhangers in 17 and 18. It's what they did at the end of season 1. Is the end what they did at the end of season 2. They leave all these cliffhangers open so that if they want to come back and explore it, there's things that they can pick up from.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
totally. Oh, hey, I made a note real quick. Not change the subject too, but speaking of Wild at Heart, and you were talking about Barry Gifford.
Yeah.
Are there Wizard of Oz references, or is that all Lynch?
That's all Lynch.
Okay, I kind of assumed that was the case, but I didn't know. Maybe there was something in there. Maybe that's why he liked the book in the first place. I don't know, but
no, he actually. I say this jokingly, but he stole the book too, because Monty Montgomery, who plays the cowboy in Mulholland Drive, acquired the book to write and direct it, and he was going to direct it, and so he asked Lynch to come on as a producer. And Lynch says, okay, but if I read this book and I like it, can I direct it? And he goes, yeah, sure, I guess, you know, whatever, not thinking that was going to happen. Lynch read it and said, I want to make it. And so Monty Montgomery is the producer, one of the producers of Wild at Heart.
Interesting.
And Lynch wrote the script in a week because they had to start pre-production really fast because they were on Monty's timetable, not Lynch's timetable, right? Which ended up being a blessing because Lynch ended up winning the Palme d'Or with it and all that. But if you read Lynch's script for Wild at Heart, it is a very good adaptation of the novel.
Yeah.
And then what happens is he filmed all that and then was like, nah, cut. Okay, we're gonna just, you know, go from here to here to here to here. I mean, in the script, I think it takes like 20 pages to even get Lula and Sailor together and on the road. Right. So I mean, and if you get the new Blu-ray of it or the lime green box set back in the day, you know, there's those 90 minutes of deleted scenes of Wild at Heart, and you can totally see that what he cut out was huge character moments of the novel. It didn't change the story.
Yeah,
it was like Lula hanging out in like a bar with her friend, or Sailor. And this is the part that I'm glad he cut. Like Sailor flirting with other women and Lula getting jealous, and then they had glad they cut all that crap out. Sailor and Lula needed to be a couple together forever, and off we go. None of this jealousy and none of that. That would have killed the movie.
Yeah, it's interesting again. Like so first of all, I got the Shout Factory one.
Right.
So I haven't watched any of the extra features yet. So that's interesting to know. But two, the more I see it and the more I talk about it, like, man, like that whole love conquers all thing, like True Romance, Natural Born Killers, like that whole 90s road star-crossed lover thing, like, because True Romance is the same thing. It's like they are instantly in love and they're instantly inseparable. And
he's got Elvis infatuation.
Yeah, it's the same. It's like it's basically the same thing. Which is I love those movies too. I'm not taking anything away from them.
Now in the script of True Romance, Clarence is on the road. He's writing a screenplay.
Yes,
and it's Natural Born Killers.
Yes. So I did read that script back in the day. When I was 16 or something, but yeah, I love those movies. It's just interesting. So for some reason, I was just way more into Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet, and then Lost Highway. Like Wild at Heart never really like really grabbed me when I was.
But everybody in Twin Peaks is in it, and
right.
They even mentioned One-Eyed Jacks.
Yeah, totally. You know, it's
and I think the Sherilyn Fenn scene is fantastic.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. And like I said, I just watched it. I just got the Blu-ray and watched it a few weeks ago. And I really
hope you watched it loud, because the louder that movie is, the crazier it is. I mean, and it's got one hell of a great soundtrack. And I remember people saying to me like what I thought season 3 was going to be like in terms of soundtrack, and you think it's going to be Twin Peaks and stuff. And I said, well, sure, but I think it's probably going to be more Wild at Heart, because if we're all over the globe, that's what Wild at Heart is. It's like New Orleans has its own sound, you know. Texas has its own sound, and if anything that I love Wild at Heart the most of, besides just everything, but the one thing I love is the pacing, because it is rip roaring and moving fast, and it's great, and there's flashbacks, and it's just, you get all these crazy colorful characters, and then they run out of gas in Big Tuna, Texas, and the movie stops.
Yeah.
And I love it because that's the way it would feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, I really, really, really liked it. I really can't wait to watch it again. So speaking of the music, so the metal band, Power Mad.
Right.
On a side note, if anybody gives a shit, Atari Teenage Riot was one of my favorite bands, and they like sampled Slayer, and like it was like a digital, like heavy electronic music, and they actually sample one of their songs samples the Power Mad song when they're at the concert before they do the Not Love Me Tender. What's the first song they do? When does Sailor sing her?
The Treat Me Like a Fool.
Yeah. So when they're at the concert and the metal band is playing that song, I was like, oh shit, I know that song. It's like, okay, because this band I like sampled that song. But that was a super weird because it's not just the concert, like it's multiple, it's not the sex scenes, but driving scene. I think it's a lot of the driving scenes have that metal band, and it's just wild. Like I just forgot how it's like a sensory overload, you know, but it's great. Like the whole movie is sensory overload.
And it probably has one, if not one, definitely one of the greatest opening credit sequences I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
Because it's not just fire. I mean, anybody can film fire.
Yeah.
Right. But he's shooting this gas into the air so thick, so huge that you literally see like ocean waves of fire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you're not like, oh, look at this fireplace. I mean, it's just like you are engulfed.
Yeah.
Right? And you can actually see like waves.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember sitting there, and I've said this many times, but in the theater I saw it, and it was in this huge like movie palace, red drapes everywhere, right? So coming off Twin Peaks, it was fantastic. And then the opening credits with the fire, and then the image of the fire was projected onto the red drapes as well. I mean, it was just like, and then you go from that to the killing of what's his name? I can't remember.
Opening scene.
Bob Ray Lemon, right? I think, yeah. On the staircase. It's just like, I remember my friends and I, after the first 5 minutes, we turned to each other, and just said, "We're coming back tomorrow."
See this shit again.
We hadn't even seen the rest of the movie yet,
right?
And then like a month later, it was Wild at Heart played a long time. It was like 6 months in my town it played. And that was back in the day when movies, I mean, Fire Walk With Me played 2 months and nobody went to see it like ever. But that was back in the day when movies played forever.
Yeah.
But the last like month and a half it played in my town, it played double feature with Pump Up the Volume. Right. And it was like, that was one. I mean, when you're 14 years old, that is one hell of a great double feature.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but I think Wild at Heart, what's weird is I always thought that would have been Lynch's most mainstream movie, not counting Elephant Man, that because it is sort of a mainstream love story. Yeah, there's darkness in it, but
yeah,
it's all controlled, in a wild way.
Yeah,
it seems to be his most forgotten film now.
Right, which is interesting since it won the Cannes and all that stuff. Like,
I wonder if Nicolas Cage's reputation doesn't do some damage to it.
So, personal confession, like I cannot stand Nicolas Cage. Like I do not. It's actually he's fine. It's just growing up, like I never liked. I thought he was over the top all the time. Like every goddamn movie I ever saw him in, it was just insanely over the top. And there got to this point that it just he was just more annoying to me than being. But okay, Raising Arizona, Wild at Heart, adaptation. Okay, it's not that I don't ever watch Nicolas Cage movies, but as a general rule, it's just like nowadays I don't mind it so much because now it's like just kind of have an affection for him.
But he is Sailor Ripley.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I remember I put on Wild at Heart.
There's no question
for a group of college students, and I said, "Look, the stars Nicolas Cage," and they went, "Ugh." Right. And I said, it's got Laura Dern, who, the girl from Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Right. And so I put it on, and they were just kind of sitting there. And when it was over, they were like, "That's like the greatest movie ever made," because you feel that way. You were so elated at the end.
Yeah,
and it all comes together with him singing "Love Me Tender" because we know that's he's going to propose to her, and we get Cheryl Lee as the Good Witch, and it just again, we talked about this the last show, but I think Marietta Fortune, right at the end when she's like, "Girl, what have I told you not to go?" That is Sarah Palmer's Jowday. That is the picture disappearing. When Lynch talks about in the documentary, you'll see it where he says that in his mind, Marietta is dying inside.
Yeah.
And so she's just withering away. She's not melting, but she's withering away from the inside. She's deteriorating. That's the feeling I get with when Sarah Jowday's stabbing Laura's picture. I feel like that's Marietta Fortune right there, grabbing Lula and Sailor's picture and just stabbing it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a different story, but you have to remember that Twin Peaks and Wild at Heart were done concurrently.
Yeah, at the same time, basically. As far as he made Wild at Heart during season 2, right?
No. He shot the pilot, right? And then he went and made Wild at Heart after the pilot, and they shot the rest of season 1, and then he came back and finished up episode 2 of season 1.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So he came back and edited it or filmed it. So when season 1 aired, they weren't filming season 1. They had already been wrapped and done. So season 1 was brought to ABC as a complete package.
But based on their viewing, but based on the pilot, right?
No, I mean he brought on the pilot.
Yes.
But they didn't reshoot. They didn't shoot the rest of season 1 until like 3 months later.
Right, exactly. Because
but in that space, he shot Wild at Heart.
Ah, okay, interesting.
Right. Huh. But that's why there's so many people from Twin Peaks into it. Because he's in that mind state.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I think there's still these connections of Wild at Heart in even season 3, in some ways.
Yeah. Well, and season 3 is also just like it's all of his.
It's everything. It's everything. Because even the orb is the Elephant Man's mom.
Yeah, and Jack Nance's head and Eraserhead, and the witch, the globe, the Good Witch globe, and like.
Well, even like Laura Dern's face in the Red Room is very much like Six Men Getting Sick. It's like it's there's all these elements of all of his films.
Yeah,
brought in.
Exactly. Exactly, the Laura Dern and the tulpa and the face cracking and the bleeding stuff, and even the evolution of the arm is like the head, the cheese head. It's like some of his photography and his artwork too, and the prison scenes remind me of
Lost Highway.
Lost Highway, and then there's the same down the highway shots, which are just in a lot of his stuff. And
everybody says Blue Velvet, there's always that highway shot.
Yeah. So it's just so.
In a way, would you maybe make the case then that if Lynch doesn't do anything else, like if he doesn't direct anything else, that season 3 in a way is sort of the culmination of all of his works combined?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he hasn't done anything movie-wise in 10 years, and then he comes out of retirement to do Twin Peaks, and that's why, I really think that we're done. I'm not saying never, ever, and I'm not saying that they won't do a movie or a couple more things or whatever, but, this Lynch and Frost basically coming out of retirement, spending 5 years or more putting this all together. They wrote it together, and Lynch got to direct it. So it's more of his vision. And then Frost gave us 2 books, and it's a culmination of Lynch's work. It's a culmination of Frost's interests in history, and it's the Odyssey, and it's a twist of the original show. And it's there's so much going on, and it's so dense, but it plays out so I get people that watch it and they're like, the fuck is this? There's nothing nothing happens. It's 18 hours of just people just kind of moving from point A to point B. And it's And it's kind of like you were saying the last time we talked, it's like, yeah, but man, like if you're a fan, like this just goes so deep. So there's like meta stuff going on. And like this could all be Cooper's dream that he's, you know, covering up stuff, or this could be Laura's dream, or we are the dreamer and this is all them trolling us with nostalgia stuff. But then the Odyssey stuff. So it's based like it's Frost has got this like epic literature shit. So Odessa, Texas, Going Home Again. There's like straight up an Odyssey theme. You know, like there's just so much to like sink your teeth into and roll around in. And that's the one thing I kind of meant to say, like, because I talk to friends. I don't know if you have people that feel this way, but you know, some people are just like, look, I can't get into it because there's no answers to anything, and it's all just open ended and up for interpretation, and I just can't, you know. And like for me, like Twin Peaks is more like especially now with season 3 and stuff. It's like playing Dungeons and Dragons or playing like a video game that you know, doesn't ever have an end. It's just like it's some play. You know, every time I view it, I feel something different about it. Every time I kind of like look something up, or what, like the mythology and the demons and the connections to the like the transcendental shit and the Buddhist stuff. And you know, some people think that this is Cooper's death journey. You know, that season 3 is like the spirit trying to reconcile itself and from the 2 parts, and like you can just go on and on and on and on and on. And that's why I like it, because I know I'm not going to get any answers, but it's like reading history or playing a game that doesn't ever really have an ending. It's exercise for my brain and my imagination.
But I think you're going off season 3, because if you look at seasons 1 and 2 and Fire Walk with Me, I think there are answers.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, all of it came, well, with the books and season 3 now, like what, as far as you were saying, like this being like the end, like
right.
The big seminal work that kind of sums up.
Well, if there are answers now with season 3 and the books and all that, or there aren't, then it allows you to, if this is the end of Lynch's involvement, or he's done making films or whatever, then it allows the viewer to forever be caught in that dream state.
Exactly right.
Where if there is a finite ending, then it's over.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that either. If they had given me a solid ending, right? If he had rescued Laura Palmer from getting killed and it ended in my lovely way, I like to think of Sarah calling up to Laura from the morning she's died and saying, Laura, it's breakfast, and Laura comes down the staircase, and it ends with Cooper driving out of Twin Peaks instead of driving into Twin Peaks, and that was the ending of the show. I still would have revisited the show forever. I don't think I would have just been like, well, you know, there's an ending, so it's over. I'm moving on. I would have been like, I love this show because it's building to a crescendo of an ending.
I agree, and I'm still with you. Like there is definitely a huge part of me, and like you said, the setup to the whole thing, the Entertainment Weekly covers, and then there was the thing that they were. Frost or Lynch even straight up said, like, there's going to be some like closure to this. And back when it was first announced, they were talking about how, you know, this is going to be like for the old fans, but like, we really think that we're going to get some new viewers in too. And then the trailers were all like, Tracy and Sam and young people that we didn't know. And I thought you'd have our older classic cast, and then you'd have like the new hot teenagers, and like this would spin a whole new thing. And like, and like you said, then like, yeah. Scene 1, episode 1, you're just like, oh, this is how it's going to be. Okay. Like, well, I'm just strap in, because this is not going to be anything like, it's not what I expected. I was just a little pissed that they like, why would you tell us that there's going to be some closure here? Why would you tell us that they're trying to get new audience members in with the like younger cast? And
well, because one, if they came out and
the whole thing's just like a big
But if they came out and just said, well, this is only for the original fans.
That's true. That's true. It's a marketing thing.
Showtime would have been like, I don't think so.
Right. Yeah,
right. I mean, there's not enough original fans out there. There's only probably about 40 people on Twitter that actually tweet about Twin Peaks on a regular basis. Everybody else just kind of comes and goes.
Yeah.
So there's not that many original fans to carry Showtime over that threshold.
You're right. You're right.
But I want to see numbers. That's the thing I like to see. I want to see numbers, and they don't provide numbers, right? Like, we know about all these millions of people who subscribe to Showtime for Twin Peaks. How many people unsubscribed as the series went on? How many unsubscribed once the series was over? Like, are they still at the same number they are? I'm just curious. You know, they don't ever release those numbers. How many people left their network?
Or the budget, or the I'm also curious about Netflix. So the original show is on Netflix, Hulu. It's basically Amazon. It's on every streaming platform. Like, you basically, if you subscribe to anything, you can watch the original show. Fire Walk with Me is another thing, and obviously season 3 is another thing. But I'm curious about those numbers as well. Like, how many people are watching the old stuff, and do they stop when Cooper, the end of season 2, that cliffhanger? Do they get frustrated? So I know a buddy of mine, good friend of mine. He's probably in his mid to late 50s, maybe 60, and he just watched the first 2 seasons for the first time, like, just randomly on Netflix. He's like, oh, I heard of David Lynch. Like, yeah, this will be cool. He's kind of an artist guy. He's like, yeah, this will be cool. He watched. He was like, oh my God, that was amazing. Like, I loved it. I love the music and the this and the that and Cooper and the Red Lodge and all that shit. Like, I loved it. And but he's not much of a TV watcher anyway. So, like, he's not gonna go seek out Fire Walk. Like, he's not gonna go buy the Blu-ray set. Like, he's not gonna subscribe to Showtime streaming. Like, so he watched the original show and he was way into it, and that's kind of like, okay, cool. And then there's other people that are like you were talking about, and like how I retweeted somebody's tweet. It almost feels like you're not really going to get into season 3 unless you've had some time.
Okay, pause there, because I want to bring this up. So this was somebody on Twitter. I mentioned the 40 people that tweet on about Twin Peaks, but this is definitely somebody. I don't know this person. I know the handle Twin Peaks.
Yeah, that's what I retweeted.
Yeah, I know. That's why I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So he posted, I'm assuming it's a he, that says, "My daughter, newly minted Twin Peaks fan. Will we be satisfied at the end of season 2? My wife says, you can't watch Fire Walk with Me until you are an adult. Then you have to wait 25 years to watch season 3.
Yeah.
Now, so that goes back to what we were talking about before, that I think you almost need to have some time in between season 2 and season 3. You have to have some time. I don't know what that length of time is for you, but to me, I feel like you almost need to have at least 5 to 10 years in between to really understand what they were trying to do with season 3 that time. The other thing I want to throw out to you is, what age do you start somebody watching Twin Peaks?
Right.
I mean, I don't know how old this person's daughter is, but I mean, I know when I watched it, when it came on, I was 14, right? So I literally went 14 was season 1, 15 was season 2, 16 was Fire Walk with Me. I think, so that was like, it was like boom, 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 right? And then you flash forward 20 years or whatever, and I watched season 3. I think in a way, the people who were in that age range when it came out, and then watching, I think in a way, it's like, I think that's their real target audience that they were going for. People who were, let's say, 10 to 15, 10 to 16 when it first came out. And then, because they're really going to understand that 25-year absence.
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you? I mean, do you think that, like, if you were to show it to somebody, would you say, look, after Fire Walk with Me, you have to wait at least 6 months to watch season 3? Or do you think you can just binge watch the whole thing?
You can. And like you said before, it's like for the people out there that have watched all of it recently, it's not condescending at all. It's just like I have a hard time imagining how, I don't know how your brain would process that. And like I said, I know people now that like love the original show, and then they watch Fire Walk with Me, and then like maybe they're indifferent to it, or like now, like dudes like you and me looking back, like Fire Walk with Me is like a seminal moment for me, and it's like a quintessential Lynch film now, and like I can't imagine his career. I can't imagine Twin Peaks or Lynch's career without Fire Walk with Me. Honestly, it's just.
But I think Fire Walk with Me got a bad rap.
Of course, no, I remember at the time everyone hated it,
but not so much. Yeah, but I'm saying I think it got a bad rap because it ended up being the last thing we saw of Twin Peaks for a while.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think that aspect to it. The other thing is that, again, the inconsistencies we always talk about.
Yeah.
And there's small little inconsistencies that you would think that a script supervisor would be like, hey, if you just, tweak this and tweak that, it will work better. Now we're not going to do that. Like, for instance, Philip Jeffries and Gordon Cole started the Blue Rose Task Force. Philip Jeffries specifically picked out 3 people: Chet Desmond, right? Albert Rosenfield, and Agent Cooper. Well, Agent Cooper has no idea who Philip Jeffries is in Fire Walk with Me. So, Philip. Cooper, meet the long lost Philip Jeffries. You may have heard of him from the Academy. He's the one that designed the Blue Rose Task Force that you got pointed to.
Yeah, exactly. And Lynch is like, I don't care. It'll work. Go with it.
Well, of course, if you see that scene in Fire Walk with Me when Jeffries is there, we did a huge watch along when we were doing the Queen of Hearts campaign. We were doing when Gordon is saying, I know Coop and all that. If you look on the wall, the clock there says 253.
Yes.
Which, let's be honest here, okay? They did not have this master plan to do this whole thing. It was, They probably went back to watch Fire Walk with Me, and Lynch noticed the clock and said, we'll use that number. And of course, it just, and then they managed to do this whole like thing of 10 and all that stuff. My great moment in season 3 was realizing the Al-Cave symbol was the figure 8, the infinity symbol. Like, I thought that's clever, because out of all the theories out there that I've ever seen about Twin Peaks, that was not one of them. So that was kind of cool. It was like, well, of course it does. It was right there in front of us the whole time. That's what I like.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool too. So now it's like this whole smattering of like with my friends or people that I know that some of them watch the original show and that's good enough for them and that's it. Some of them watch the original show, think it's the greatest thing ever, and then they watch Fire Walk with Me and they treat it more like, man, that was like dark and kind of weird. Like, okay, but that's kind of like a one-off thing. And then they're like, okay, well, I'm going to hurry up and watch the new stuff. And then the new stuff, they either like, some people just like lose interest in it or maybe just not. So I just think that there is some truth to, I think it's more effective, or it impacts you personally if there is some sort of distance in there. And you kind of have to be, not have to be, but like it definitely helps if you're a David Lynch fan and you've seen his other work and you put Fire Walk with Me in the proper context. And it's, I don't know. It's just like the weirdest thing ever. And I think that that's part of the charm of it is and again, so much of The Return is about the passage of time. The Return is, like you said, it's not season 4 or 3 of Twin Peaks. It's especially the stuff in Twin Peaks, the sheriff station and whatnot it's like season 25.
Yeah.
It's like this show's been like The Simpsons. It's like, you imagine watching The Simpsons in 1992 when it was arguably, at its prime or whatever, and then not watching anything for 25 years. And now it's 2018 and you sit down on a Sunday night and watch an episode of The Simpsons. And it's like, the humor is different and the animation's obviously different and evolved and whatever. And like, I mean, that's kind of a bad example, but you know what I mean? Like,
no, I brought that up to Sabrina on the show, and
yeah,
she agreed.
yeah,
That was the intent, was to make it seem like the show had just kept going and that we were just coming back in. And like I think you mentioned that season 3 is a show with really no beginning, middle, or end. It's just kind of here it is. And in a way you could mix and match it all over the place because of the timeline, you know, inconsistencies.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could even make the argument that the first scene of season 3 of Cooper and the Giant, you could make the argument, and you wouldn't be wrong, that scene is actually the first scene of season 4.
Yeah, right. Or that's what happens when the lights go out.
Right.
Like you could stick it right, like that scene could be that opposite. And that's something too that always stuck with me too. Like I kind of was, like I was just saying, like, you know, you had Frost come out and say that there might be some closure to this, and then of course they're doing the PR stuff, and you know that this is gonna, like, we're trying to relaunch the show and like bring in the new audience and stuff. And but then I kind of got these hints that, like, I don't know, because I think it was before it came out, even Lynch said, someone said, well, how should we absorb the new show, or how should we watch it, or whatever? And he said something like, you can watch it out of order. And I went, what? Like he said you could try watching it out of order. And it didn't really like make sense as I was watching it, but now, like, looking back, it's like, yeah, totally. Like I've actually, I'm not going to put this up anywhere because of copyright stuff, but like as I edit stuff, I've cut the Twin Peaks, the Dougie, and the Mr. C stuff. Like basically I'm taking all the Twin Peaks stuff and making it like, you know, like 3 or 4 little 45-minute episodes, right? Just to kind of see how it feels. Like, does it work that way? Like, you know, and like the timelines, the discrepancies, and like you said, that opening scene could really, you could make the argument it could be at the end. You could also make the argument that it could be at, like, there's like 6 or 8 spots throughout the whole thing.
I know. Personally, for me, I think that's what's happening when Dougie's in the coma, and then when he says "you are far away," that's when he sits up.
Oh yeah, because he gives him all the clues, and then he wakes up, and then Mike is like, you know what's up, and he's like, yeah, I understand 100%, or I'm awake 100%.
Right, but the only thing that throws a monkey wrench in that is the fact that he says, "I understand about Richard and Linda." in that moment. So like, even the moments, I think Lynch just does this purposely now, which is you go, oh, this is how it can connect. No, there's always one thing in there that makes it so that you can't do it.
Yeah. Well, and that the other thing too. Yeah, exactly. There's always one thing or one. I don't know if Lynch does this on purpose. I don't even know if Frost does this on purpose. But one thing I've noticed with The Secret History, and what I like about it, is like, if you've ever studied any kind of history at all, like any kind of topic, nothing, not even like grandiose, like not even like the, you know, World War II, but just like something little, like, okay, what local history, like in your local town, like what's the story with X? And you always have to like pick a point, and you have to start, and then there's connecting points, and like someone wrote a book, and someone wrote a magazine article like 100 years later, and someone did this, and someone did this, and you have to go out and like piece all these things together, and there's always something missing. There's always something that doesn't make sense. Well, it's like, well, if this was a statue built for a local hero, then why was it not mentioned here, and here? So there's always a mystery in studying history, and that's what I get from Lynch's work. I think with him, like you said, he's more intuitive and goes off of feeling, and I think but Frost, it totally makes sense, I think.
But I think, see, and I understand what you're saying, because I say it too. That Lynch is intuitive, and he just kind of, you know what, I don't understand why I'm putting this painting stroke here. I'm going to do this. It feels right. However, why does it feel right? It feels right because of who you are as a human being. It feels right because of your feeling to the work and the work's response back to you in a way, right? Is that you're constantly in this, whatever I project to it, it projects back to me. I'm going to keep an open mind so that I can I can get the little things in my head, you know, the ideas in my head, and put them on the canvas for you to enjoy. So, but Lynch is no dummy.
Of course not.
I know he reads. I know he does lots of things. Now, he may not sit there and say, okay, well, this is based historically off this, but you can't tell me that Lynch doesn't go, I have this idea from this because I read it when I was, you know, 25 years old. He may not be able to contextualize it and tell you this is where it comes from. But if he's read it, or if he's watched it or experienced it or heard some music, it's in him.
Yeah.
So yeah, he may be, like I said, be more intuitive, but I think that's where you get that Lennon-McCartney approach with him and Frost. Is Frost comes at it very analytically, and Lynch comes at it very you know, intuitively, but they're not that different from each other. They are two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. It's something since our last time we talked, something I've been thinking. I think, you know, I'm probably never going to meet David Lynch. I don't even really want to. Like, I don't know what I would say to him that hasn't been said a million times. Like, I don't really care. And Frost is kind of the same way. Like, I don't really care. But one thing I would love one thing I would give anything for would be to be a fly on the wall or involved in the Skype conversations when they were writing.
That's what I thought should have, instead of season 4, like in between, or if they don't do season 4, they should just release those tapes on Showtime week by week. Let's watch them break down episode 5.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that so it was, Dougie seems like such a Lynch thing, and it definitely is, but Frost said in an interview that like he got this image of, or he was reading a news story about all these empty homes being built in Las Vegas, and there's a similar kind of, I don't know, similar thing going on in China where they build like whole cities that are just like empty, right? So you got this vision of like these empty homes in Las Vegas, and like, wouldn't it be cool if Cooper's, so basically Dougie thing, like the genesis of the Dougie thing sounds like it started with Frost. Right. Or at least putting him in Vegas or whatever. So that's what I'm curious about, is like, they're two sides of the same coin. They're kind of coming at it from different angles, but they're speaking the same language. And I'm curious. I would love to hear, even if it's just 10 minutes of them talking back and forth, just to like see what that was like, you know, like, and Frost would be like, oh, David and I, or maybe it was Lynch, like, oh, we would sit and write the Dougie stuff, and we would just be cracking up. Like,
well, yeah, because their Dougie stuff is synonymous with the on the air, that type of humor.
Interesting. So I've never seen On the Air.
Okay, well,
yeah, but
that was the thing. Well, when Fire Walk with Me came out in the theaters, right, 92, On the Air came out on TV.
Yes, right.
And On the Air is completely, you know, slapstick, over the top. It's like all the slapstick things of season 2 in like a half-hour TV show, right? And then you had Fire Walk with Me in the theaters, and so in a way, that's when it felt like, whoa, maybe Lynch, like at that moment, again, a Fire Walk with Me, I think, has grown in many instances, but at that time, people took it as, oh, Lynch isn't balanced right now. He's out of balance. He's got the wacky good side on TV, and he's got just the darkness on the movie screen.
Oh, wow.
Whereas before, Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart, even Twin Peaks, it rode the line.
Yeah, right.
But literally, it had become Cooper and Mr. C. You know, Mr. C was on the big screen, and Cooper was on ABC.
Yeah, and it fits with the dark and the light side and the goofy. Yeah, that's actually someone. Yeah. Is not Wild Heart is On the Air out now?
No, I saw. Okay, in America, they played 3 of the 8 episodes and yanked it. So the only way for me to see the last 5 episodes, I had to get the Japanese Laserdisc, and this was like 15 years later.
Yeah.
I didn't even see the last 5 episodes until like 15 years later. They only aired 3 and yanked them. Yeah. The pilot, or the first episode of On the Air, is, it is hilarious. It's genius. It is genius. But it's so the opposite, of what he had been doing for a while. And then you look at Firewalk with Me, you can't believe the same man directed both. Right. And then you see Hotel Room a year later. And again, Barry Gifford's writing that with Lynch directing, and they would do that with Lost Highway as well. And they had this strange thing where it's like, we're gonna double down. You thought Fire Walk with Me was slow. we're gonna really slow it down. And so I think Hotel Room and then Lost Highway. I mean, Lost Highway, regardless of whatever you think about that movie, it's slow. It's a slow burn.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, and again, that's not a criticism. I think that's done on purpose.
Was Hotel Room a pilot?
It was a pilot that never got picked up, so now it's just a 90-minute video, that you can get. It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Is on YouTube?
Yeah, okay. And even Daduda in the live chat says on the air is on YouTube, so you can watch the whole thing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
that totally. It's so, again, speaking of the season 3 and all that being like a career retrospective for those guys. Wow, like I hadn't really put that in. Like I knew On the Air, and I knew it was a big failure, but it was like supposed to be funny, and I know some people like it, and it's kind of on my list of shit to watch. But like, yeah, that totally kind of like makes sense. Like you've got your slapstick comedy versus your like total darkness, and there's.
But On the Air was written by Frost and Lynch.
Yeah, no, right. So it's these two guys 30 years later, like reconciling all aspects of their. So I haven't read any Frost books. I don't think. Maybe I did.
Well, he did this golf movie called The Greatest Game Ever Played, right? And Bill Paxton directed it.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was a great actor. He unfortunately passed away. He did Frailty, and then he of course was in Jennifer Lynch's film Boxing Helena. But the commentary of it is on the Blu-ray is Bill Paxton and Mark Frost for 2 hours.
Oh wow!
So that's
cool.
That's pretty cool. I wish that. I mean, we all know that Lynch isn't going to do any commentaries and all that type of thing, but it would be cool to have. I wish they had done commentaries, like, for instance, like had an actor come on, like have Eamon Holmes come on and just be like, well, this was what it was like to shoot this scene.
Yeah.
Because even though we have all these documentaries on the disc, if you notice, there are a lot of sequences that they don't show them film either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would like to get some information about those as well. But yeah, I think it is sort of a culmination of all those work. It felt like that at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it felt like, in a way, we were talking about this back when the show was on, it felt like, in a way, like even some people would say it has aspects of his Ronnie Rocket script in there for Dougie. So it's almost like Lynch is using the name Twin Peaks to throw all these ideas in there and have it not necessarily be Twin Peaks, but just throw it into the Twin Peaks world. And I would say, in a way, when people say, well, and again, this isn't across the board, you couldn't say this totally, but I would say season 3 is more about world building than it is about the individual characters. I mean, I think one of the only characters that really gets a true arc is Janie E. And maybe the Mitchum brothers, but the Mitchum brothers is more of a, they're well casted concepts. The gangsters that see the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. Janie E is the only character that really goes from one extreme and spends the whole series, because they give her the time to go across the whole series and come out a different person at the end.
Yeah. And which I love, by the way. So even when I was frustrated with Dougie and just like, Jesus Christ, how much longer is this going to go? I just, for the record, I just love Naomi Watts. I think she's just so, I don't know what it is about her. I don't know if this is the right word, but just that natural. And every movie she's in, she gets like the tone for me. Like she played Janie E perfect. Like it's part serious, but part kind of quirky and over the top, but it's but it's got a lot of humanity to it, and like, you know, her delivery might be kind of like, you know, but like what she's saying is rational and thought out, and like I really like that character.
I
but
think
like, even like The Ring and Mulholland Drive, like playing Betty, the Betty and Diane thing, like Betty is this optimistic ideal, right? Or I get the names. Yeah, Betty. So like she's got the optimistic thing. Anyway, Naomi Watts totally nails.
Well, she's such a jerk.
Huh?
She's such a jerk to Dougie, and then when she goes and confronts those guys in the park, right?
Yeah.
That's when we realize she's really on Dougie's side.
Yes,
she's just abrasive.
Yeah.
And I think that scene was the scene that kind of endears you to her, because you go, yeah, she's a pain in the ass, but she's doing this because she feels like she's got to be in charge because Dougie's not helping at all.
Right. Well, and then you could make the argument too that the old Dougie was a piece of shit.
Right.
So he
was created by Mr. C. He was created by Mr. C.
Yeah. Right. The fat Donald Trump hair, lying, cheating, gambling problem husband guy.
And Wilton in the chat says, don't forget Naomi Watts still has to create the American accent on top of all this.
Yes, right. Like I didn't even know she was Australian until, again, so I saw Mulholland Drive as like, I wouldn't say pre-internet, but you couldn't just like, 2003, I don't even know. I mean, I had a computer or whatever, but like, I didn't even know she was Australian till like, till The Ring came out or something, right? Like,
and I still think one of her great performances is in King Kong. I mean, she's extraordinary in that movie.
Yeah, she is. I don't know about the movie as a whole. I'm a big Peter Jackson fan.
But I mean, but her Ann Darrow is so like you care about her a lot.
Yeah. So she just, I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but it's over the years. It was kind of like, again, kind of like this. It was really season 3 kind of forced me to. And after the Janie East, I was like, I'm like, I think I really, really, really like Naomi Watts. Like, I really like everything she's in, and she nails the tone. And I just, my sister got the Criterion remaster of Mulholland Drive. So I've seen Mulholland Drive like several times, but I borrowed it and watched the Blu-ray, and I'm just like, God damn, she's like amazing.
It makes me wish in an alternate world, if I could go into an alternate universe, David Lynch style, I would have loved to have seen what Mulholland Drive would have been as a TV series.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been a cheerleader of, I love Twin Peaks. I'd love to go back there and do another season, but maybe we could just kind of leave it over here for a little bit, and let's do Mulholland Drive, the series on Showtime.
I think that's what it would have ended up like season 3.
Probably.
So you think like a dual personality, waking nightmare type, kind of open-ended.
But all that dual personality stuff was added for the movie. It wasn't the pilot.
Oh, interesting.
No. That's all. No,
I actually don't know anything about the original shooting script of Mulholland Drive.
Okay, well,
I know the movie inside and out.
It's the movie pretty much the first 90 minutes, and when she stands Rita up in the mirror, and they're both wearing the wig, right? Right. That's the end of the pilot. More or less, that's the end of the pilot. Everything else after that was added for the movie. That's why they become lesbians. That's why there's nudity. There's all of a sudden they start cursing in the movie, because all that was made for the feature film. Right. Wow. So all that Diane reveal and all that was all added for the theatrical film. So what would have happened on this thing of Betty and Rita as the series went on? And I say, just remaster the original pilot, put that on Showtime, and then let's do episode 2, and let's do a 10 episode Mulholland Drive series.
Yeah, that would be super sweet. Well, again, David Lynch has got so many great. Every time I say like, oh, this is his masterpiece, I think of something else. But like, Mulholland Drive is just so good. Oh, I was going to tell you, what do you think about this? Like, I've been thinking a lot about the Audrey story and how she is, dissociated from, like, literally from everything else that's going on in the story, but in a weird way, it's kind of a microcosm of what the whole thing is. You can make the argument.
Yeah,
right?
we all ended up looking at our TV screens going, "What?" at the end.
Yes, yeah, more or less, yeah. So I kind of view the Audrey stuff as like the dumpster scene, the Winkies scene in Mulholland Drive. So I remember seeing it. I saw Mulholland Drive like the weekend it came out, and you know, all of Lynch's stuff, like I don't know what's going on like the first time through. I get overwhelmed with the sights and the sounds, and the stories are all disjointed. Like Lost Highway, I probably saw Lost Highway 2 or 3 times before it was like I started like putting a narrative together in my head of like what is actually going on here. And the dumpster scene to me is like it encapsulates the whole. It's a microcosm of what's going on in Mulholland Drive. It's someone who's having a dream and refusing to face, if they choose to face the evil lurking around the corner. If you know, if the Diane character, you know what I'm saying. This is hard to explain, but like Diane creating Betty to not face the fact that she killed Rita and all this, and that her moving to LA was a nightmare and a failure and all that stuff. So the creature behind the dumpster is like the evil reality kind of like lurking around the corner, right? I guess that's the simplest way that I can explain it. But I think the Audrey shit is like the Winkies scene in Mulholland Drive in a kind of a weird way.
That is not my interpretation of Mulholland Drive at all.
Oh, okay.
which is funny. My interpretation is I'll just tell you real quick. So I get the whole dream, you know, waking up, and you know, even the cowboy comes out and says time to wake up, and that I mean I know that, I can see that.
Yeah.
That's just the way I always looked at it though was because I always thought that may have been too simple for Lynch just to do it that way. And I know even he's come out and said part of it's a dream, part of it's reality. But I still think it's too simple for him. The way I looked at it was, and again, I'm not saying this is what I think that Lynch really believes. This is just what I think, is I think that it's all real. I think that that there's Betty, and she's trying to help this actress or this person. She doesn't know, Rita. Try to figure out what's going on with this money. Where did she come from? What happened to her?
Yeah.
And I think they stumble across that body and they're like, oh my God. Right. And I think they have this like little, you know, they have this like love affair, you know, one night together. They go to this play or it's magician show. They come home and, you know, Rita's starting to like freak out and Betty's starting to freak out. It's almost like the universe says, okay, you two really want to know what happened. You really want to know, because you guys are poking the bear a little bit too much. You want to know? Okay, here we go. And I think in that moment, Naomi Watts gets to inhabit the woman's last few days before she offs herself. In the bed. So and Rita was that woman that she killed herself over. Right. And so I always think that like the universe saying, you want to know what happened? Here's what happened. And so it's not Betty Diane that kills herself. It's Betty. Like we're seeing Betty, but in reality, it was this other woman's face. Right. And she just has to, the universe puts her in the body of the other woman for a few days and lets her kill herself off. And it's just like, there you go. You found out your answer. Now, goodbye.
Yeah. And then that kind of fits too, like like you said, the Hollywood horror trilogy or whatever. It's like, so like this is, you think this is all great. And so like the box is that the box is like maybe kind of like a Being John Malkovich thing, where it's like that's the gateway into the other.
It's the red curtains.
Yes, yeah, exactly. The red curtain, of course.
So, and I think all those people, I think the person behind the dumpster, the mystery man in Lost Highway. I mean, I think that all these people are inhabitants of the Black Lodge. I mean, they all seem like they all come from the same place, don't they?
Yeah, no question. And that's again, like that's why it all So backtrack. Sorry, I'm the one that threw this to Mulholland Drive with Naomi Watts, but like you were saying before, the about season 3 being world building and whatnot. Like, yeah, I felt that way almost the whole time watching it. Like, this isn't Twin Peaks. Like, this is a new David Lynch and Frost creation that just happens to have Twin Peaks characters in it. Like, this is not the FBI guy coming to town and cherry pie and stuff. Like, this is definitely more like Mulholland Drive and Lost Highway and Inland Empire. Like, this is either like a nightmare journey, this is someone's nightmare, or this is a waking dream, or this is like parallel universes that are intersecting. And yeah, like the to me, there's not much different. The Polish accountant isn't that much different than the cowboy in Mulholland Drive. And like you said, the dumpster guy is not much different than the mystery man. It's not much different than, your kind of, I guess, Mr. C in a way, or Jaude, or.
Now, remember, in Mulholland Drive, originally was supposed to be Audrey Horne Goes to Hollywood. It was supposed to be a spinoff.
The genesis of the.
Yeah, the genesis was that Sherilyn Fenn was going to reprise Audrey going to Hollywood. So, in a way, Mulholland Drive is definitely part of this world too.
Did Lynch write that by himself?
Mulholland Drive? Yes.
That was him by himself, right?
By himself.
But Barry Gifford wrote Lost Highway with him.
Lost Highway.
They co-wrote it.
And
it's not a book.
It's not a book.
They just decided to work together because of.
Yeah. And apparently Lost Highway, any questions or mysteries that the film provokes, was in the script, was filmed, was shot, and then Lynch went through and just took out all those parts out of the film.
So there's like explanations of why Balthazar Getty's in the jail cell.
Apparently, there's everything has been. So if you can find the shooting draft of Lost Highway, it would say everything.
Holy shit!
But do you really want to know?
No, I don't.
I remember at the time of season 3, before it even came out, people would say to me, "What if you got leaked the script? You got this show, you got a ton of people watching. What if someone in Hollywood just leaked you the script of Twin Peaks season 3?" And I said, as tempting as it would be, I would never read it. I waited this long. Maybe I would read it after the fact.
Yeah, I might read it now.
Right.
but definitely not before the.
I wouldn't have read it 2 weeks before it came out. No way. No,
and I'm so glad that I did watch it week to week. And so, I like movies a lot, and I do try to watch a lot of movies, and there are random shows but I just kind of get just inspired by little things here and there, like, oh, the new Orson Welles movie's on Netflix. I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard about that, and I'm a fan, and this and that. And like, okay, so I'm gonna like set aside some time to specifically watch that movie, and it's the same with like TV shows, like. So I'm not up to date. I'm kind of like you, like I'm so behind on shit. Like I don't even know. I have no idea.
I still haven't seen the last season of Game of Thrones. So
yeah, so there you go. So it's I'm so glad that I stopped and had a moment and remembered how much I love Twin Peaks, and I had a couple years to build up and get excited about it, and I got Showtime streaming, and I did it week to week, and seeing episode 8 or part 8 live. Like, I mean, it was just amazing. I'm so glad it happened the way it did, and watching it live and being frustrated and being excited and, being kind of like let down at times, but overwhelmed at other times. I mean, it was just like one of the greatest, viewing experiences of my life. No question, so it was great.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying about the world building, it's almost like, Twin Peaks has gone global because the ideas cannot be contained anymore in the small town. It's almost like the small town has this cloud of darkness over it. So we're going to go out there and we're going to explore more about the concept of where this darkness, where this light comes from. And, you know, I think by the end, the cloud has gone off of Twin Peaks. I just wish that there had been maybe a little bit more of like the ending of Blue Velvet, where we see the town coming back together again, as opposed to just, that's it, you know?
I agree 100%. And it is kind of a shame that the only kind of glimmer of hope that you get at all is in the context of the, at least as far as the town goes. I don't know how you feel about it, but the Final Dossier. So in the show, Steven and Alicia Witt, like, you get the impression, especially if you turn on the subtitles, like,
oh yeah,
he basically says, I killed her, or like, I can't, like, there is, if you read the subtitles, because it's kind of hard to hear because he's all snotty filled and whatever. But right. Basically, the show makes you, the season 3 or the return makes you think that he killed Becky.
Right.
I believe the show, that's how the show made me feel. And then in the Final Dossier, though, Shelley and her children or child are one of the few positive stories. Like, basically, Shelley makes it out of all this shit unscathed, which is contradictory to season 3, or contradictory to the ending of, because it makes you think that maybe he killed her, or whatever. And I think that's kind of the, if saving Laura Palmer equals Cooper not really coming to town and crossing in the Black Lodge, and there's no doppelganger, there's no, like, if there's a glimmer, if there's a sliver of hope, if Twin Peaks has a chance to survive, it's the idea that like, if Laura went missing instead of got murdered, that would change things kind of like slightly, changing the timeline. And I look at it as Lynch or Frost purposefully rewrote some of that stuff, or wrote that stuff in the Final Dossier to, like, give us a little bit of, like, hey, maybe if this shit didn't happen, or if the timeline was changed, that, like, maybe Becky doesn't die, and maybe Shelley and Bobby are still married, and the town still has a chance to be that positive place that we used to think it was. And that's just my interpretation.
Well, it's almost like season 3 is like a novel, and then the Final Dossier is like the epilogue. Yeah. And then the Secret History are the appendices from, like, Lord of the Rings or something,
Exactly. That's exactly what I think. The Secret History is like the appendices of some epic work, because even that's all disjointed. Like, there's no real through. I think the Secret History is more like season 3 than some people would admit, because, like, it's disjointed and it just seems like fragments, and you kind of read through it. Like, the first time, I think you were the same. Like, you weren't, like, thrilled with it the first time.
No, in fact,
like, what the fuck is going on here?
Well, it felt like Lynch. It felt like Frost was writing a history book, and then thought, well, what if I threw in some Twin Peaks references just to kind of drum it up some business?
Yes, exactly.
Because there would be like 50, 60 pages before there was any talk about anything else again, So that, and so it kind of gave me a really sour taste in my mouth. Believe it or not, that review is legendary in the Twin Peaks community, because, like, I got pissed on and hated for, like, a long time, because I came out and I was the only person that came out and said they didn't like it. Now, again, I have a copy of it.
Yeah.
And I think there are things to appreciate about it. I think, again, it's like Fire Walk with Me, right? You can like that movie all you want, but you can't really appreciate that movie until you have season 3, and then you look back and you go, okay, it's all there. You tend to like things more when you are offered something else.
Yes.
You can compare and contrast it to. Now, personally, Fire Walk with Me, I think, is a very good film. I don't think it's Lynch's masterpiece like people say it is. Why? Because I can make 5, maybe I'll do a video about this, 5 arguments I can make that will make Fire Walk with Me better. And if you can make it better, then it can't be a masterpiece. That's just my feeling.
Yeah.
Looking at those missing pieces, there's at least 5 of them that should have been in the film. And if you can make those changes, then it can't be a masterpiece by that classification.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Now, but Lynch did everything he could because he had a 2 hour and 15-minute runtime in America. He could not go over that at all. Mm-hmm. So that movie was 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 32 seconds. Yeah. So the fun game I like to play is, okay, if you're going to put in the entire above the convenience store sequence from Fire Walk with Me in there, then what do you lose?
Right.
So you have to say, okay, these are the 5 scenes I'd want in the film. Okay, well, now you have to pick that length of time to come out. What do you cut?
Yeah.
Because
it feels like all that stuff is, well, again, the missing pieces is crazy because the happy Palmer family scene, because it feels like that, like, okay, at the beginning, we want to reestablish that this is maybe or maybe not a happy family. Like, so they, the Laura Leland Sarah thing would have had more of an arc. You would have like, it felt like that the teaching the family Norwegian and they're all smiling. It's like the only happy scene of the Palmer family.
And that's why he shows it to him in that restaurant, like documentary where they're sitting around and goes like, here, check this out.
Yeah.
The thing about it is one of the problems they had with writing the Fire Walk with Me script is that they yes, there are other elements of the show in there. There's the Annie stuff, there's the Red Room stuff, and but for the most part, Bob Ingalls said that him and Lynch only watched the pilot to write Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah.
And you can see that, right? Because you mentioned the Norwegian stuff, right? Well, that was a big thing about the pilot. Yeah. So we're going to try and write this to connect it all to the pilot. So when Donna says to James, I knew Laura, I knew her better than she thought I did. Okay, so that explains the whole pink room scene. Yes. Okay, right?
And Bobby killing the guy.
Right? Which never got brought up at all in the series, is now a prominent scene in the movie. That's the thing is, I'm losing my train of thought here. But they built it towards the pilot, which is why when Sarah says, I heard her phone ring once. Okay, so Laura's phone rings once, and that's why she answers the phone in the bedroom. Never mind the fact that it was not James that called her. It was her dad from Ben Horne's office, but Lynch wasn't involved in episode 16, so he doesn't remember that.
Yes, right, exactly.
And so there are details that link up, but they link up because the pilot mentions them. And that's what they went off of, was primarily the pilot. Yeah. Anything else that was added in there, well, I consider it each of those things a gift, because they primarily just went with the pilot.
Yeah.
And so all that other stuff, the Philip Jeffries stuff, that's all just Lynch's creation, Let me just come up with this new radical thing. And my argument to that is that scene is great. I like it. However, if they had to truncate it that much, maybe it should have come out of the movie.
Yeah, I watched one of your videos. I've heard you say that before. I'm basically kind of with you. On one hand, though, like,
it's cool. I'm glad it's there. I'm just saying that, like, if I was filming Fire Walk with Me and I had to cut that sequence down to that little, maybe I would have taken that all out and just put in the above the convenience store scene intact unto itself, because Philip Jeffries isn't in it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And so maybe after Chet Desmond takes the ring and disappears, we just get played that sequence and then we go to Laura.
Yeah, actually, yeah. And that probably would have made a little more sense.
Probably.
Because, but just real quick, back to the Secret History. Like, I was kind of with you. Like, I read it, and I actually did. I was so excited. Like, I got the book, and I did the Audible audiobook. So,
which is probably easier to digest.
Right. So I did both. So I had the audiobook playing but I wanted to see the pictures and the documents and stuff. So I had the audiobook going with the book, and I was trying to like have this really immersive interactive experience, which it was, and I'm glad I did it. It's just yeah, the first time through I was like, this is really like sparse, and there ain't a whole lot of Twin Peaks in here, and like, why are we talking about UFO sightings in the 40s? Like, what the, like,
Let me pause you right there real quick. Hold that thought. Dana Ashbrook, I want to find this magazine. I can't remember what the magazine is. It drives me nuts. Back in 92 when Fire Walk With Me was coming out.
Yeah.
There actually were some magazines doing press about it. Not much, but there were some.
Yeah.
And there was an interview with Dana Ashbrook. And they asked him, what do you think about this Fire Walk With Me movie coming out? And he goes, oh, it's great. We finally got rid of all that UFO crap and went back to the way Lynch wanted it, back to this mystery of Laura Palmer. Yeah. And then, of course, Secret History is all about UFOs.
Yeah. That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But now, because obviously season 3 was over and the Final Dossier came out, and now with like that extra context and stuff, like, and me making the videos that I do and like doing writing, and it's like, okay, so I'm gonna like make this statement, you know, is there something in the books that back this up? So basically I've had to re-explore and reread Secret History, and now I'm just like totally in love with it. Now I think it's like this, like you said, like it's more like an appendices that like I don't think it's meant to be read in one chunk. And again, I think it's a lot like season 3. Like it's meant to be, you can take it out of order. You can take it as, you know, it's again, like it's people's perception, right? Because you're reading Tammy Preston reading Major Briggs, who's
hang on a second. We're reading Tamara Preston or Tamara Preston. In Lynch's world is Tammy. In Frost's world is Tamara.
Tamara. Okay, yeah. So you're reading Tamara Preston, who's reading Major Briggs, who's telling the story of Dougie Milford, who is basically like the first the Blue Rose, like the origin of the Blue Rose is with Dougie Milford, and like with season 3 and the Final Dossier and all the shit in the original show and Major Briggs and all that stuff. Now I can't imagine not having the Secret History. Like I go to it all the time to like the sex magic stuff and Jack Parsons and the UFO shit. And, you know, it's like Dr. Jacoby's little like write up on Nadine is kind of fun. And like, there's some stuff in there, but like, and the Owl Cave stuff and Jeremiah Johnson and the fucking Indians and all that stuff is just, I don't know. So now I'm just like, I'm totally in love with the Secret History now.
But they made a mistake.
Huh?
That was my issue with it though, is they made a mistake because when they announced
reverse is what you're saying.
Well, no, well, that's the thing, was that I firmly believe the Final Dossier was in the Secret History of Twin Peaks.
I agree.
And I think Lynch asked them to take it out so that people wouldn't like get feelings of like, oh, is Donna in this series? Oh, is this what's happened to Audrey? I think Lynch wanted that stuff removed and come out after the fact so they could have a fresh experience into the show.
And Annie Blackburn and the Audrey context. And
I think it would have set people up for a show that they didn't get. And I think they would have turned on it fast.
Yeah, I agree.
Mean, people already were turning on it.
Yeah, exactly.
However, I think the problem was when the book was announced, it was called The Secret Lives of Twin Peaks.
Yes. Yeah. Right?
And so the book they were setting us up for was not the book they delivered to us with The Secret History of Twin Peaks.
That's correct.
So I crack it open expecting The Secret Lives of Twin Peaks and what happened, this and that. I don't get that at all, which would have been okay if I felt like what I was getting was more than just like a textbook.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, season 3's over, Final Dossier is out. Okay. Why, to me, I know people, you know, are just diehard Twin Peaks fans, love everything. But The Secret History of Twin Peaks only became better once season 3 and the Final Dossier came out. Then I had something to contrast it to.
Yes, exactly.
After Fire Walk with Me 25 years, I just get plopped this textbook and I'm being told this is the new Twin Peaks. I'm like, ha ha ha, this is a joke.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
This is not the new Twin Peaks. This is a bunch of hogwash, and I don't like it.
Yeah, that was my reaction. Basically, I did the audiobook and read it, and then I think I read it again before the show actually started. And yeah, I didn't like hate it, but I was like, this is mediocre and not interesting. And
so maybe,
the
Secret History of Twin Peaks, maybe the Secret History of Twin Peaks should have come out after season 3.
Well, no, like you said, like the Final Dossier is the secret lives. It's like what happened to Leo and what happened to Shelley and what happened to Audrey and what happened. Like that's the book that should have. I mean, yeah, you're right. Lynch is right, or they are right. Like that would have probably that would have hurt the show. So I'm glad they didn't.
Well, because but in a way, it also helps the show because they talk about how the doppelganger went back to the cabin and presumably killed Leo, right? Yeah. And that explains why he has Wyndham Earle's briefcase with the computer in it.
Oh, it's supposed to be Mr. C killed Leo?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to reread that.
Because
I thought it said that Wyndham Earle turned just.
No, because Wyndham Bob
and then he decided to shoot him instead.
No, because Bob took Wyndham Earle's soul, and Bob's inside the doppelganger, so therefore Wyndham Earle is inside the doppelganger.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, I need to.
Because the doppelganger had to go to Wyndham Earle's cabin, collect all the stuff about the Dugpas and on the Black Lodge stuff, got all the stuff, killed Leo, took the briefcase.
Okay, that's interesting. So, man, I don't know how I missed that. So that was one of the first things I did notice about Mr. C. Like, if season 3 is a total like twisted mirror of the old show, then yeah, you've got your bad guy with his cool high-tech briefcase, right? So basically Wyndham Earle is Cooper's doppelganger like not literally, but like he's in season 2 in 1989 or whenever, like he is the opposite of Cooper. He's the bad agent. He's seeking evil for his own gain, and he's seeking power for his own, right? So like the original show did kind of have an opposite Cooper, and that was Wyndham Earle. And so now 25 years later, it's like,
well, he's sort of like Moriarty against Sherlock.
Yes, exactly. And so where the return is more like kind of meta, or
well, it's almost like the Russian doll thing, right? It was like, who is inside who?
Yeah. Like, yes.
Okay. Well, Bob's got Leland. Bob's got Wyndham Earle. Bob's got Leland, and Bob's inside the doppelganger.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's interesting. Those books are super interesting. So yeah, I did. I was with you 100%. I was disappointed when it came out. I'm like, and then it just totally threw me. Like then I was like completely lost. Like by the time the show actually aired, I had no idea what to expect and no idea how it was going to play out. Because, like you said, it's like, well, they're going to relaunch it. But then the Secret History is just this kind of like, yeah, like this boring history textbook. And then, but they say it's going to have some conclusions, but it really doesn't. And then episode 8's in the middle of all that. And
so let me throw this out to you. You're watching season 3. When do you start getting the feeling like this is not going to get wrapped up at all? When do you start getting that vibe? I think it was around, for me, I think it was around, I don't know, between 12 and 14, but then they would trick you, right? Like nothing would happen for like 2 or 3 episodes. And then there'd be one episode where they like caught up. There was like all this information, just a download of information. And so therefore it was like, oh my God, we're back. We're back to speed. I kept thinking that like, they may just pull this off.
I agree. I remember, I don't know if you remember, but Game of Thrones was on at the same time.
I didn't watch it though.
Right. So, but I had some friends that were way into it, and I'm a big Game of Thrones fan. But so I would watch either Twin Peaks first and then Game of Thrones, or vice versa, depending on the night. And yeah, I remember it was the same. It was back episode 12 or 13. I was like, okay, now I'm like bored. Or, you know, like now it's like, okay, is this going to just devolve into, I'll tell you one moment that like totally freaked me out. Now it's one of my favorite moments, but at the time was the David Lynch, or the Gordon Cole wrap up at the beginning of part 17.
Oh, with the Jowdays and stuff.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, we're looking for Judy, and we made up this plan with Major Briggs, and then I think this other shit, and I was just like, oh shit, like he just wrapped up like the whole story, and the rest of this is going to be like nonsense, and that's kind of what it was. I was like, that was my oh shit moment. Like, oh no, like
I had a friend that jumped off the show.
Sorry, go ahead.
I had a friend that jumped off the show right at that moment. He was just like, you know, I made it all the way through. This is a bunch of BS. And he goes, I'm done.
Yeah.
and I was just like, I wasn't, no, because it connected to the whole Fire Walk With Me thing and all that. So I was fine with it. But the thing that upset me was like, again, it was the idea of, well, according to this timeline, Gordon, like this makes no sense because you were macking on Shelley that entire time, not forming plans with Major Briggs.
Yeah.
I mean, at least they could have come up with something like another time that we wouldn't have known about or something.
Right. And then we would have, so again, where the books come in, I know some people are like, well, Lynch isn't involved in the book, so it's all bullshit. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But in the book, I don't know if you remember, in the Secret History, they actually write in a little, that time when Briggs first brings him the coordinates, brings him the Cooper owls, not what they seem, and when they go fly fishing and Briggs gets abducted, like there's a little something in there towards the end. It's saying like that basically that Cooper and Briggs like formed a bond, like they started bonding and hanging, like they basically are supposed to be, according to the book, hanging out more than they are on screen. Yeah, and then the Shelley thing too. It's like they don't mention Gordon Cole too much, but then that's all in the background because supposedly Gordon Cole knows all about listening post alpha and was involved in.
Now the only time that happens is when Gordon shows up to bring Cooper his gun and reinstate him into the FBI.
Yes, yeah, and the thumbs up.
Right. So between that and them going to the diner.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. That's it. That's the only time he's in there. Right. Yeah.
And then of course when they do that big double date with Shelley and Annie at the restaurant.
Yeah.
That's it. Like when is Gordon formulating this job? And again, the argument is, okay, if Cooper's going into the Red Room to get Annie to rescue her from Wyndham Earl, there is no like Judy Jowday discussion at all.
No.
You know, and again, there's no mention of the owl recovery. All that is a Fire Walk With Me construct.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So again, let me throw this question out to you. I know we're big Twin Peaks fans. We know we love it. We love all the incarnations of it. If someone was to say to you, Jeremiah, right now, what is your favorite incarnation of Twin Peaks? You would say you have season 1, season 2, Fire Walk With Me, the books, that includes the Laura Palmer diary and all that stuff, or season 3. What do you think is your favorite incarnation of Twin Peaks at this moment?
Man, that's tough.
Because they're all different.
Yeah, they're totally different, and I get something different out of each of them. So I'm writing my next episode, right? So I basically, in the last month, I just rewatched the entire original series again. And I'm working on I'll tell you about it later, but like I'm working on something else, Twin Peaks related kind of. And so it's just one of those things like, oh, I'm going to go like check this out, or I'll watch this. And then I just get hooked. I watch the whole thing. So like, I really, really, really love the original show. Like the season 1 and 2 and all the season 2's flaws. And of course it can do without Evelyn Marsh and whatnot, but
they're not bad scenes.
Yeah, I like all of that shit. I like how it ends. I like the cliffhanger. That final episode is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. The pilot episode is one of the greatest things ever on TV. The opening of season 2, May the Giant Be With You, that's another like 2-hour David Lynch movie, or an hour and a half, 90-minute David Lynch movie as well.
It was supposed to be a Steven Spielberg film too.
Really?
Yeah, Spielberg wanted to direct the opener for season 2, and Lynch said, I want to do it, but Spielberg offered to do it.
That's insane.
Yeah, we would have gotten that instead of Hook.
I like Hook. As much as the next guy, I suppose. I don't know, but like right now in my life, like being older and looking back and being more into literature and music and sound design and things that like what gets me off, like I like The Return a lot, like more than, yeah, it's flawed and it's messed up and it's you could argue that it's not great, but like it's so unique and there's nothing else like it. And like, I just, but then I got the Criterion Fire Walk with Me for my birthday last year when it came out, and I like Fire Walk with Me more than I ever did, ever. So now I just can't imagine. I mean, I'm kind of with you. It's not a masterpiece necessarily. It's not maybe David Lynch's best film, but like, I can't imagine Twin Peaks without it.
Well,
like, it's like the crux of the whole. It's the linchpin.
But it's the bridge though. It's the bridge to season 3.
Yeah, and it's the origin of everything, at being a prequel, in a way, right? So it's like it connects.
And remember, the atom bomb sequence was supposed to be the opener of Fire Walk with Me.
So that's what you mentioned that last time.
Yeah.
There's a picture of an atom bomb in Fire. Like, I don't remember. I got confused when you said that last time.
The original script was.
So I read the script. I don't remember.
No. That's not the original script. The original script had Cooper, no Chet Desmond. It was Cooper all the way through.
Oh, okay.
But the original script had a, when you see Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, you have that neighborhood, that fake neighborhood, and then there's that.
Oh, the atom bomb test.
The atom bombs, yeah. So the original script had an atom bomb test, and all these bugs were on the ground, and they got into the houses, into these fake houses, and these bugs were Little Mike and Bob and all that stuff, and they were underneath one of the Formica tables, and it protected them from the blast. And the blast had opened up this portal, and so they got hit and evolved over time into this Black Lodge entities, and that's why Mike's always talking about the Formica table and all that kind of stuff. But that was supposed to be the opening. Well,
that makes part 8 make like more sense. Like, I don't know if you notice, like when the atom bomb goes off and then they cut to those kind of like film, you see all these little and those to me were always kind of like the eggs in Judy's puke, or like, you know what I mean?
But I'm saying, like, if the movie had begun with that countdown and then the atom bomb and then you get the Hiroshima music, instead of just another floating body going down the river with it literally saying Teresa Banks, so no one's confused, I guarantee you that movie does not get booed at the Cannes Film Festival.
Oh yeah, if Fire Walk with Me opened with the
episode 8
of part 8, it would have changed cinema probably. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. Like,
and so when they did the whole thing, when Cooper or Doppelganger got shot, and then they went back in time and they did the atom bomb, I was so thrilled because I was like, they did it. They got it in here. Like, I didn't think we were going to get anything like that. I thought that was just a throwaway concept idea that they came up with, and and that they came from a planet of cream corn and blah 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 blah. That was the original concept, and then all of a sudden it's like you have the doppelganger puking out oil and cream corn, and then you have the atom bomb sequence. It was like Lynch went back to his original ideas for what he had in Fire Walk with Me and worked them into the season 3.
Yeah,
and so I found that more electrifying than other aspects of season 3. Like, I just love the fact that they found places to stick everything.
Yeah. Well, and then that part 8 instantly, that's when I didn't go read it. I didn't reread it till after the show. But when part 8, when it said, White Sands, New Mexico, 1956 or whatever, like, that's when all the secret history stuff came back to me as well. So because granted, it's not the same, but Roswell's in that area. The sex magic stuff out in the desert. So as soon as we saw that desert and it said White Sands, New Mexico, I went, oh, cool. And well, then of course he's got the atom bomb. So
in the office.
Where did you find that out?
It's online. It's a Bob Engels quote where he's talking about the original incarnations of the script.
Oh, interesting. Because I've heard him talk about the Josie stuff. I'll have to do some more. Man, I thought I knew something about this show, and then I meet you, and I don't know nothing about it. So.
Oh no, trust me, none of us know everything. It's us coming together that we start realizing, oh yeah, there's this and that and this, you know.
Yeah, no, it is true. I learned a lot more just talking to people. And someone like, oh yeah, like this happened, and you're like, oh okay, cool. Like
well, but see, I'm fascinated by things that are not mysteries. Maybe in Twin Peaks, like how many times does Laura Palmer's living room get switched around? You know, like, because if you notice, like, it's like Cooper and the sheriff enter the room in one way in like one episode, and then there's another door on another episode, and then it's the Real House and Fire Walk with Me. It's like, you know, and then of course it's the Real House in season 3 as well. It's just like things like that. It's like the sets kept moving and changing. Like they just build Laura Palmer's living room in the show, and that be it. I mean, you know, Maddie and all them, they enter at all different places throughout the show.
Yeah, and how they come down the stairs and what room how they turn into. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and one thing that, I mean, we're never gonna see because they didn't shoot things like this back then. I would have loved to have seen how all these sets were connected. You know, because like, you know, there's you know, the things like on the Buffy DVDs where they take you on a tour and you go through Buffy's kitchen, leads you into the library of the school, and then, you know, I would have loved to have seen how all these sets had been constructed so that they could put the, you know, what was the diner connected to? Because if you look at the diner, obviously the pilot is the real location, but then season 1, it's kind of this, you know, small, cozy diner. And then by season 2, when Gordon's hitting on Shelley, that place is huge. Yeah. And, you know, and same thing with season 3. It's like, how the heck did the sheriff, I mean, that's a set, obviously, but how the heck did the sheriff's office all of a sudden have doors that encompass 17 other characters?
Yeah.
It's like the show keeps growing and that's what I'm saying. Like, in terms of world building, the show is getting bigger and bigger. Even the sets are changing. It's like everything is like the Winchester Mystery House. It's building onto itself and getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. I agree. The Truman office at the end is just like absurd. It's like,
well, especially in the making of, where he says, I got 17 people waiting around, you know.
I don't even know what I'm going to do.
And his assistant, Scott Cameron, says, well, you know, take the weekend and think about it. He goes, oh, I've been thinking about it a lot longer than a weekend. But it does fit. Listen, I love the whole Freddie Bob Ball thing. I think it's great. But it does kind of also feel like Lynch at the last minute goes, well, we got to do something.
Yeah. And actually, I gotta probably start heading here in a second, but I think we should leave that for a different.
Okay.
So I've got a whole theory about all of that stuff too. So I love that, and I hate it too, and it's like messed up. So yeah, we should.
We'll save that for another deep dive another day.
Yeah, because I got a lot of thoughts on that, and even Frost's comments on how all that wrapped up. Like, Frost actually laughs at an interview and says Deo Ex Machina. And it got me thinking, like, okay, so Freddy's got the glove and the Polish accountant and this. And so, like, you could argue that Deus Ex Machina is basically like an act of God, right?
Yeah, but the Polish accountant scene is different because that plays like straight out of a Coen Brothers movie, where it's like this little thing happens and then that spirals another thing and another thing, and then it just becomes this hail of gunfire, and it really built. I mean, the timing in that scene is impeccable. Yeah,
I agree. Like, I move car.
No, but it builds and builds and builds into it's almost like a Tarantino set piece where it's like, or a De Palma set piece where it's like, wow, I didn't think when the scene began we were going to end up here, and I love that. Whereas like the Freddy scene, it literally comes out of nowhere, and you're left going, like, while it was happening. I mean, I'm sure you remember the first time you're watching it, going, "What the hell is going on?"
Oh, yeah, it was just absurd. You're just like, but it's like the glove from the fireman.
Yeah,
It's literally It's literally the hand of God. It's the literal translation of Deo ex machina. Like, we're gonna throw something in here at the last minute that's literally an act of God that's going to magically solve all our problems. I mean, then there's another layer of like, is this all the dreamer, whether that's Cooper or whoever, just kind of like fixing it all, or is this a filmmaker that ran out of money and ideas that pulled this out of his ass?
well, again, they could have easily, like I said last time, they could have easily had the woodsman trying to kill Belushi and all of them, and having Freddy kill them, whereas Cooper could have taken out the bomb ball. I would have been okay with that.
Yeah, that would have been sweet. Like you said, what the hell's his name? Freddy.
Even Jake Wardle was like, "That's a great idea."
Yeah, he did a Reddit Ask Me Anything recently. It was pretty good. But yeah, Jake Wardle was like, he told you're like, how about what if he started beating up the woodsman? And Jake was like, yeah, that'd have been awesome.
Jake is a really great guy. He's super nice, super engaging with the fans, and I think because of him and who he is, I think it's allowed people to kind of gravitate more to the Freddy Krueger with the glove, right? The Freddy character a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think if he had been maybe a distant actor with everybody, then people would be probably talking smack about Freddy. But because he's so engaged, everyone likes him. You can't hate Freddy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he's great.
And he also was kind enough and did one of the trailers for Queen of Hearts. So that was
cool.
Yeah. You didn't see that? I'll send it to you. Yeah, it's trailer 3. Yeah, Jake Wardle. Yeah.
I thought I found all that stuff. I guess not.
I'll send it your way. Anyway, all right. So we got to wrap up because you got to take off. So tell everybody where they can find you.
TakeTheRing.com takes you to my YouTube channel, and Take the Ring 430 is Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And really appreciate the support that I've been getting. I've got something like 575. So I'm 25 shy of 600 subscribers on YouTube. So TakeTheRing.com. Go subscribe to my channel, please.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking this, like what I've been saying, deep dive. This is the kind of thing I've been dreaming and living for a while. It's just this idea of not even knowing where the conversation is going to go. We just plunge into Twin Peaks and just keep going.
Yeah, me too. This is super great. And you get to cover so much stuff. And so even though it's kind of like all over the place, it's still kind of grounded too. So it's good. I think we covered a lot of stuff.
But I still feel like there's still so much we can get to.
Man, this is what goes on in my head like all day, and I don't have anybody to talk about it with.
Well, we'll have to do these more often because I think a lot of people enjoy these.
Yeah, we can do this as often as you want. Just you know where to hit me up anytime.
Totally. But I want to thank you everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your love and support. Make sure to give these videos thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel, please. I've lost a lot of subscribers over the last couple of months, so I'm trying to get them all back. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, if you're new to this channel, thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like these videos. Make sure to click that bell so you get notified when we go live. Join the Facebook page, the Twitter account. And if you are not on the Queen of Hearts Facebook group, make sure to subscribe to that as well. I'll approve you, and you can come join in on the fun, on the making of this awesome little film I'm going to be making hopefully soon. And I got some breaking news for you.
Cool.
Right. For those of you who have stayed on, I do have some breaking news. I've cast Annie. So So we have a new Annie. It's not Heather Graham, but we do have a new Annie that is going to be in Queen of Hearts. So that is fantastic. It's taken a long time to get to this point, but we do now have a new Annie. So that's great. Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure to Take the Ring. Make sure to Obnoxious Anonymous, and we will see you next time. Thank you again for taking this deep dive into Twin Peaks with us. Take care.